Just let me think. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Just let me think. Gotta move it. Gotta move it.
So is that red line like a buffer?
Nah, they gonna just start cyclic, no?
Free up the youth there. The youth there.
See?
Free.
Nah, they gonna just start cyclic, no?
Free up the youth there. The youth there.
See?
Free stick, free kilo, free
Yeah.
John,
See? Merchant
free
YG.
free OG. Go on.
Alright, they cloaked in. All black on my clothing. X-Men, that's how we rolled in. Put it to you, have you drunken like the rose in. But you in your mouth, taking out your gold in. Put it to your next man, now it's next in. Now I'm dipping in the stolen, creeping in, I'm scoping. I see him leave him open. Big large gunners, no poking. Pop out the big heads open. Now you're floating. The body stays stiff in the ocean. Cruising with some deadly fish. So your body ain't exposing. The DBS I was chosen. So I hunt for the golden. And make watch, don't care if it's stolen. But pop, if you owe him. The black flag
chicken broth.
5 deep,
soy for protein, chicken fat. Oh,
to eat, so we gon' win. The headshot, so you gon' spin.
Niggas not tryna see me with the DBS, cause you know the niggas I'm with, get it poppin'. Strap on my waist, you can tell I'm walking. Last feel alive right in the coffin. I remember I almost got cops every time you trippin'. On the truck I'm sitting, call it camping. My niggas had me snapping. Now I'm sitting here fighting on my enemy. Had to get my own strap, niggas didn't fend for me. A fat blunt and some Hennessy. Just to level me, this beat sounds heartfelt. Big bullets made the biggest niggas melt. That's a yes, nigga. Up top, nigga, I'm nigga.
Every nigga I roll with talk scavengers. Somebody strapped to the beat, so mad at the caliber. Deal with you right, ain't no getting back at us. Do what I got it, then I'm dipping in the Avenger. Back to the bricks, doing the usual way. Felt like he was trying to hide, so I had to shoot a few. Gotta expect it, you know how down bottom shooters do. Cut the gloves and eat your hoodie. Black socks fitted too black. I'm about to get down on my business. Deal with them on the ones, no need for a witness. Hand me the ratchet, call me Mr. Fix It. Learn from my bro, no need for shooting if you miss it. Stop complaining, every day is a gift. Every up and got myself in the kitchen. Beans everywhere, pops whipping. I wanna move bricks, but a nigga hate pitching. The strap I got on my waist stays kicking, and I be trained so I aim with precision.
I get it. You know that much of a dick. You act like a dick. You try to raise money for the tricks, but why put it in a 40 ball? To show the point of who's actually going to contribute and who doesn't.
It's only half of the re-end. Double lemon DBS,
so
know that we bang. Know that we bang. Get it in the T.O. everywhere that we go. Niggas know how we
I'm not trying to fundraise nothing. Just the guy is spitting there.
I'm sleeping on you motherfuckers just to let you know. I ain't sleeping on you motherfuckers just to let you know that I'm ready and I'm firing. When I come through, nigga, don't be hiding. If I get caught, toss the Glock, then I'm lying. Don't claim the sun and slowly be dying. You can find me in the slowly riding. If I'm strapped up, best believe it's on the waist. Only strapped up, put the strap in your face. I was on the block, posted up front page, trying to get guap in every other way. Still trying to get guap, looking for a better day. Mommy's on my back cause she heard I'm getting paid. But what can I say? Mommy knows that I'm safe. I either got to
9 to 5 a.m.
snitching on my niggas. I'd rather catch the case. 2 of my niggas got shot on this same day. Rest in peace to my niggas be edgy. Plus free all my niggas locked struggling in the cage. Shut out! PM Black Movement!
Oh, I'm going to start sweating. Alright. Oh, I got this. I fucking sent to the res. Oh, fuck. Yeah, sweat and t-shirt.
Just let me think. Just let me think. Just let me think. When the storm brews, I'm striking fast. Adding sadness, that's my past. Can't get too close, I get trash. My soul is dark, I wanna fight its ass. I wanna hot speed,
past. Rhyme with class and these mics are smashing and it's got me tripping, feeling non-existent and it's making me.
Only 65 cents, Justin.
I'm striking fast.
Plus the milk is
Can't get too close, I get trash. My soul is dark, I wanna fade it down. I'm in the storm breeze, I'm striking fast. In sadness, there's my past. Can't get too close, I get trash. In the storm breeze, I'm striking fast. In sadness, there's my past. Can't get too close, I get trash. My soul is dark, I wanna fade it fast. I want a hot beat, I might just fast. Rhyme with class on these mics are smashing and it's got me tripping, feeling non-existent and it's making me. Cold blood, I gotta roll somewhere. Calm now, like a bomb now. Think you smart, let me show you something. Throw it all down, what's going on now? You don't have for me to fucking see it later. You a fist swimming, I'm an alligator in a hungry suit with a lunch of food, so I'ma take you out. I'm the Terminator, so love, no fun. Forget the pain when I roll up. I flow so low when it's so good. I'm so low, I'm so hard. So cold, I'll feel so cold. I'm a road dog and she knows that. She's slow dancing with no clothes on, cause I'm so sorry. All the money trash, get these dummies mad, but it still got me feeling empty. Put them in a bag and then I get them dragging out, satisfy me plenty. I send a fury shot the hella blurry to all of them who wanna hate me. Shit, now I'm worried cause I'm in a hurry to jeopardize my own safety.
On the West Coast, crazy shit, man.
Just let me think. I'm ready to come out. Just let me think. Everything just seems
I don't even know how to do it.
just let me think.
But they gon' fuck me. Trust me.
Just let me think. Slow down, lost a hope now. I need a prayer with the Pope now. I don't know how I can cope now. This isn't fair, plus it's dope now. I'm on the road now to get my dough now. And I don't care who the roast now, who it goes now. I don't know now, but I'm prepared. On the move, I got on my crew. I look at me and then I look at you. You lived a lie, heard the sire. Goddamn, now ain't got the truth. I'm about to smash the roof so you can watch it see. From now on, nobody's stopping me, and I'm serving you with this big spear, showing off my generosity. With the sleep, these thoughts in my mind is racing throughout the dark. My love is treating like a deck of cards. She shuffle around my heart. That's easy, right? Well, believe me, right? I believe this type. I ain't the needy type, and I was in the shadows, planning out my battling. Only now that I can see the light. This all the time I spent, leaving everyone behind the shit. Cause my love is tense and all the lights are snipped. Got me wanting to fucking die and shit. Why I'm rationing this? Cause I'm a king of wars. Putting numbers on a fucking board. My team of love and sports, and we can bring them back and they control the rapper with a motherboard. There's a dragon looming and what he's shooting. Best believe it's in fire sin. I'm a beast around the how lead is that? No like I can spit. I said I got discipline and I ain't getting shit into my risk event. I'm a stubborn fuck and I tried my luck. But thank you though, just for listening. Yeah,
West Coast, crazy shit, man.
just let me think.
I think you can't call anybody and say anything. You end it with, thanks for listening.
I don't know how to do it.
Just let me think.
But they gon' fuck me. Trust me.
Just let me think. But I'm low now, not slow down, lost some hope now. I need a prayer with the Pope now. I don't know how I can cope now. This isn't fair, put the dope now. I'm on the road now to get my dough now. And I don't care who the roast now, who it goes now. I don't know now, but I'm prepared.
Because this is your third inquiry with ethics. What are you going to say to Mr. Blanchet? I think opposition party leaders have their job to do.
It's blending it all to one shade.
I also have a job, which is to give Canadians programs to help them, and I work with all my ministers, including the Vice Prime Minister, to the different Deputy Prime Minister, to try and solve these crises as quickly as possible, and that is what I'm going to continue to do.
Obviously, the opposition parties have their job to do, and they will keep doing it. I have my job to do as well, which is to make sure the Canadians are well supported through this pandemic.
That $20, Justin.
Economic restart that goes smoothly. I will continue to work with an outstanding group of ministers, including the Deputy Prime Minister. We will make sure we stay focused
Picture
on
if I was in his
Canadians.
private school, so just some fluke. Somehow I got into his private school.
You just said that you were aware
Justine, come smoke a joint,
Did you know that your
dog.
mother and brother were paid by them, period?
No,
I
what
believe
is
my
it? Oh, it's just
father and my mother work as professional public speakers, and it is not surprising to me that they got paid by we. but I did not know the details, and as I said, I
Not
should have known the
surprised that
details.
they got paid by
And I
we,
regret
but I did not know that too. Whoa, you're playing two ways in the middle with this English French thing.
As I said previously, my mother and
I can understand French just fine, you cocksuckers. You don't understand what you don't want me to hear his words directly. That makes me very suspicious.
But I did not realize exactly how much they had been paid by these various organizations, and I do regret that.
You regret not knowing, you regret your family getting paid? Now see, that answer don't make sense either. That makes it sound not true.
I knew that they were working as professional public speakers and worked for a range of organizations, including we. It is not a surprise to me that they got paid by we, but I didn't know how much they got paid by we.
said
that
that.
should have, and I regret that.
Just said that.
Je savais que
I did know that my brother and mother worked as professional speakers, but I did not know what they had been paid by we. I think this is unfortunate, but I should have known this.
Invitation that you testify at Finance Committee.
We have a number of ministers and officials testifying this week to answer questions at committee, and I will look at any invitations that come in and discuss them with my House leadership team. Okay.
I know that the Minister of Youth and other ministers will be testifying at the Finance Committee this week, and we will see if we are invited, and we will make decisions and consequently.
People are wondering also about the size of the grant to we, $900 million. You have 35,000 applications, and it doesn't seem, even if those people take the maximum amount available, that you would come anywhere near to $900 million. So can you explain that number and how many people you were expecting to assist through this program?
First of all, the amount in the contract to we was about $20 million for delivery of tens of thousands of youth placements across the country. They are the ones that have the network that was able to do that quickly. That was the recommendation by the professional public service. As to the larger contract, which includes direct payments to young people for contributions for volunteering across this country, we're going to work with other organizations, perhaps even with Service Canada, as a way of delivering those grants for summer volunteerism. But that is obviously something that we're going to continue to work out with the public service.
And you will see Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speak from Ottawa. He first announced his government is extending the wage subsidy program until December. He then took a phone call this morning with U.S. President Trump. They covered a number of issues, including the new NAFTA deal, tariffs on aluminum, systemic racism, as well as China, and the two Canadians arbitrarily detained there. He then got right into the We Charity controversy, saying he made a mistake by not recusing himself from the government's decision in awarding a contract to the organization to manage a major student volunteering program. He says his family's longtime involvement with the We Charity should have taken him out of those discussions. He says although he knew his brother and mother were speakers for the organization, he didn't know the details on how much they were paid, but adds he should have known those details. We will bring you more for the Prime Minister's news conference coming up at noon.
News conference? What do you mean coming up at noon? Just go back to it right now.
For the 680 News Business Report with Chris
I hate these scans. You make the cans just slightly too tall.
On the NASDAQ to start the week, even with 12,000 plus new coronavirus cases reported in Florida today. This after 15,000 new cases were reported yesterday. The NASDAQ's higher by 177, the S&P up by 43 points, and the Dow is higher by 396. Now, earnings season really gets going in the U.S. tomorrow. Brendan Caldwell is president and CEO at Caldwell Investment Management.
What we're seeing here is the market responding.
It's like a half a millimeter too tall, so a standard can opener keeps catching it almost opening.
No one's going to pay much attention to them because things aren't from an economic, corporate earnings point of view nearly as bad as people thought.
This is why it doesn't sell.
Central banks
people buy 5 cans, can't use and go, I'm not buying it. Get the pop top things, man. What's wrong with you people? You sell a product nobody fucking wants from me. Put a pop top on it. You get rid of it at the food bank and write yourself a tax receipt. Some motherfuckers. What You know how to play the Ontario system while you're over there at Francophone.
Now, as well, providing a lift to markets today, Pfizer and BioNTech got permission from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to fast-track 2 potential vaccines. Shares in Pfizer, those vaccines, by the way, for COVID-19, shares in Pfizer
no, we were wondering
4.2%.
what kind of vaccines
in BioNTech
you might be referring to. 13%.
On Bay Street, the TSX higher by 132, 15,846. Time now for the Express Gold Refining XAU.ca gold price update. Gold is higher by $7, $18.09. We've got oil down 9 cents, $40.45, and the Canadian dollar up by 15,173.
Why am I waiting for this to you when you bait and switch?
Du Nord, une hausse notable. Ça découle de ces annonces qui ont été faites par certaines pharmaceutiques en lien avec des vaccins possibles. Donc, ça fait réagir le marché boursier. Sinon, Tesla, une hausse de 12%. Et ça continue de grimper pour le consommateur automobile.
Merci beaucoup, Deez.
Merci, au revoir.
Visit markfeldstein.ca. markfeldstein.ca.
Hey, it's Ivanka Osmak from Sportsnet. With a 3-year-old and a newborn, getting a great night's sleep can be a challenge, and that's why I love my new adjustable bed from Sleep Country. The custom head and foot positions let me kick back and relax after a stressful day. Visit a Sleep Country store today to try one for yourself. Right now, you can buy any adjustable bed and get 15% back on a Sleep Country gift card. Restrictions apply. See in-store for details.
Now, 680 News regional weather conditions for kidneycar.ca. Help your fellow Canadians and donate your car to KidneyCar. Every dollar raised stays in Canada, and you'll get a free tow, plus a minimum $300 tax receipt. Visit kidneycar.ca.
In Oshawa, mostly cloudy, 21 degrees. Rain, 17 in Barrie. Downtown Toronto, sun and cloud, it's 23 degrees. The News Watch never stops. 680 News.
This is 680 News, Toronto.
Here are Steve Roberts and Sarah Parrott.
Well, good afternoon. This is Monday, the 13th of July.
Good afternoon. Here's what's making news this hour.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau admits he made a mistake and apologizes for not recusing himself from contract discussions with the We charity, given his family financial ties to the organization. CFC plays its first game. The Leafs kick off camp, and the Raptors are in the Disney bubble. Toronto's sports scene is ramping back up.
As Ontario announces details of Stage 3 reopening, it's another day of COVID-19 cases in the low 100s.
TFC forced to settle with a draw, and the Leafs held their first practice of training camp, 4-15.
We've had a record on the NASDAQ and gains everywhere else to open a new week, and the CEO of Tesla is now richer than Warren Buffett. Business at 26. Today, news time, 12:01.
What dividend does that
together on the
executive
Sinon, avec la pandémie, il y a plusieurs acteurs du milieu culturel qui unissent leurs forces pour se souvenir. On sait que c'est pas évident pour les gens en culture. Je vais aussi vous présenter l'auteur
That tells me somebody at that factory can count.
Intitulé Bad Sounds. C'est une petite nouvelle, mais dites-vous qu'elle compte déjà parmi ses collaborateurs Carla Bruni et Salif Keita. Quand même, c'est pas n'importe quoi. Et puis finalement, je vous parle de ma passion dans le segment Dans mon téléphone, dans ton cell. The Formula One.
The Express and Collectors. Other slowdowns I'm seeing, South 404 through Shepherd into Collectors, and then this construction westbound QEW west of Winston Churchill in the left lane, so it's slow through that area. Your next report at 12:11 with a look at the forecast. Jill Taylor.
Still a little unsettled today, but it's a lot more comfortable. The guaranteed high 27. There's a slight chance of some showers with thunderstorms today. For tonight, a few clouds and 16. For today, the guaranteed high 27. Right now in downtown Toronto, we've got a partly cloudy sky. We're at 23.
You know those 80s comedy
news time, 12:02.
Good guy wins and beats the bad guy in the end type movies. As long as all the down and outers and losers work together, we can do it. I'm watching everybody with their masks.
His family has financial ties with the organization.
With those details, here's our Parliament Hill reporter, Cormac McSweeney.
As questions and pressures mount over the We controversy, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is apologizing.
I made a mistake. and not recusing myself immediately from the discussions, given our family history. And I'm sincerely sorry. Not having done. The Prime Minister admits he knew his mother and brother got paid for their professional speaking and that they had worked with We. However, he says he didn't know how much they were getting paid for their work, but he should have. The Prime Minister also not committing to or ruling out testifying at committee, which would be a rare event, but it's something the opposition has been calling for. Trudeau's mother, brother, and wife received hundreds of thousands of dollars in previous years for speaking at We charity events. The Ethics Commissioner is investigating Trudeau's ties to We. The charity received a sole source contract to deliver the $900 million student service grant. Today, the charity released a statement admitting it has made mistakes and it will be closely examining its own internal structures. In addition to an ethics investigation, Conservatives have been calling for a criminal investigation. Cormac makes way Parliament Hill.
Well, parts of Ontario have been in stage number 2 of reopening for exactly a month now. And happening this afternoon, we should get more details on stage number 3. Now, the province has seen a downward trend in COVID-19 cases for the past month, and that continues.
Not one word about shooting.
I'm
making an executive decision. That's my first an executable file. I'm choosing to do so. I'm not an executive. Just shoot. Is it nope. And of course, if I lean on this side, I'm damaging it. If I lean on this side, right on the center, I'm not hurting it because the camera's not centered. But that's not it. No, this is bullshit. We're not gonna leave nothing. The premium, if he's coming up, they'll be. Well, yeah. That's source. Yeah, he's supposed to. See, it's better to fucking be tuned in when there's nothing happening than to forget to tune in when there is, right? I'll never hear that episode of the Lone Ranger. How do you think it ended? The fucking bad guy went to jail, and the bank got all the money back from the orphans and nuns fucking savings scheme. Oh, and they were able to buy a new, whatever the fuck they needed 200 years ago to stay alive. Niggers, right? Yeah, this is what they needed. We tried to help them. They still think we're good. That is kind of an interesting fucking way to look at it, too. You kind of done any of what you did without us, but you look down on me. No, I've been working this land all these hundreds of years anyway, and I'm not leaving, but you might. I'm supposed to feel bad. That don't make sense. I don't see it the same way as anybody else does. All the options of like, they want to present it as like an open and shut book. Oh, this and this happened in history, therefore this is how these people feel today. Like it's just, oh, of course they do. No. Just be angry about slavery? If it wasn't for slavery, I wouldn't be here where I am. If it wasn't for genocide, my mom would have been born on the side of the ocean. And some people nitpick the wrong things, because I say she could have just as easily been born in Nova Scotia as Toronto. Especially now these days, they're coming up with these plans where they'll let more people immigrate here if they agree to voluntarily live in more remote rural areas, lower density areas. Makes sense. You can put more people in, right? For like a certain number of years. You don't stay there forever, but like if you agree to spend a certain number of years, that'll build up that area. And that's where the money comes from for those businesses to move in there and stuff, because the businesses can make plans and say, okay, it looks like there's going to be people here for a certain number of years and so forth. I say she could have just as easily been born in Nova Scotia, but people, that's the wrong argument. She wouldn't have been born in Canada whatsoever if not for genocide, and neither would the Dutch princess. And she's Dutch, not Canadian, because the land where that room was declared to be Dutch territory, which is how it works with all consulates. Because during World War II, the Dutch royal family came to Canada instantly. And that's why the Dutch girls like the Canadian soldiers right here. And you convert like my father could just easily been like born here and left to go explore the world, whatever, or fought in a war or whatever. Like all those things could happen too. I guess it could have done either which way. But without that war conflict thing, that wouldn't happen. People get the fucking run, but. Fuck. I gotta popularize and make where this virus is well known. We've had since 1975. Didn't tell nobody. I didn't know till last year. Get the fuck out of here, man. I didn't know what this virus was until I got it. Eh? That's fucked up. No, this is wrong. You got sickle cell. All of a sudden, you gotta explain it. So you can't get no fucking traction with red bumps on everything and. It looks gross. Talk to me when you heal up. I'm never gonna heal up. Ew. Yeah, you get this. That's not right. It's not in and of itself anything bad anyway. I turned off the music.
Am I crazy? Man, just let me think. Gotta move it.
Hey,
Gotta
so
move it. Just let me think. Gotta move it. Get this money pressed like that. Check.
They don't lose anything in particular.
City natives in the building.
Bleed anything in particular for the most part.
Mic check.
Sweat touching them controls me up the wall.
Alright, let's get it.
Yeah. Shirt touching them now, so right off.
Just play the drums and sample. I hop on the track. Don't make the mistake in every province that I'm at. Don't you dare say my name, I'm probably gonna snap in. Leave your dad just like when your mommy's on the rag. I'm a zombie on the beat. Walking with a swag, y'all ain't louder than my teeth. Yo, we got this in the bag like the bomb is sweet as smoke. I promise that it's dope, but if you take a hit, then you're probably gonna choke. Yo, I'm lost and I never pass to get a better blast. So tell beats and beat knocks if they better match. Nah, I'm drinking, getting tipsy, and I don't even drink, but watch me get turned like the whole weekend. Straight, got so much knowledge, but I won't teach it. So don't give me your advice, cause I don't need it. Got that money in the bank, all about mine. Keep my fam close, it's a cold world outside. I had to get some bad habits that I once had with the mind of fanatic. The rapping where the blood's at, smoking till my lungs hurt. High swear real low, here to stimulate your mind, but I think you know it though. Tell your political style, some political child, the product of my vibe.
So the B-19 virus is carried in bodily fluids. It doesn't particularly ooze out of his box. This is like a day from my spit.
I take my thoughts to one another level. Demolition cloud with a rebellious style. I say it loud, word of my homie.
This is a leg ulcer. That is a leg size ulcer on my fucking arm, man. So also, it's gonna break my. I guess it's. I don't know what to call it. It's fucking blood leaking out of my arm.
The best rapper alive, the best rapper even after I die. From drinking and driving, hanging out in the passenger side. Well, bitches give me ass, I get the press in my ride. My flow is nutty, I'm cold and hungry, my body is phony, nose is running. I'm broken, homie, you go together with most sweater, a coat, in cold weather, I'm dope. My flow's better than most, I'm so better for both. Let it the focus, if forever I hope. You know better than the potent, so veteran, bro. More focus than I've ever been, yo. Better be known, I got the medicine to render than your head in the rope. I show no love, it's the funk soul brother, got the flow so gutter, fucking hoes, no rubber, kill a newborn baby with a stone cold stunner.
Because they're black, yeah,
tonight we down in hell, grab a knife and fork, never would have thought that if I slice a whore.
Sometimes it is what they call it, sometimes.
That they would find it, now I gotta find a ride to the other side of the border. My mind has been out of order since I was not a resort.
Oh, white clouds are deceptive, very deceptive. Snow, ice is clear, snow is white. No one's she's great with a
just imagine when you're platinum on the cash that gets you. It's the last official savage on this planet that can spit the baddest damage. Slap you if you have an issue. Cast the casket past the pencils. Ambulance will have to get you. Promise I'm unstoppable.
That one piece of it, that's just to fucking make me look bad in my own videos. It looks like it's starting to dread up, sort of, but it's not.
I'm drop kicked in the job, I'm talking the wrong shit. Bob with the bar, bitch. Rocking some long johns, a side off a cockpit. Ready to pop it off at your mom's kids, pops, bitch. Dogs,
cousins, aunt, sis. If your uncle want to rumble, put a couple in his cranium. All I'm saying is I'm trouble and I play to win. Ain't no way that you can take away the rage of me. So much anger, I'm impatient, going crazy then. I tell myself to stay my lane and play the game. I'm breaking in and taking everything. And I ain't taking shit. I'm waiting for my Mercedes, 180 acres of blunt with a slut that made it. I'm up, but I'm underrated, you motherfuckers. Better run or I'm running over you. I'm fucking gonna make it though. Whoa, whoa, that didn't happen though. Woo. That's
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hello. This call is from the Tax Department of Canada Revenue Agency. The reason behind this call is that there is a case, a lawsuit, that is getting filed under your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division number, that is 647-945-9549. I repeat, 647-945-9549. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
You're gonna get me that app. That app.
Twin hammers look like the Siamese. I got that beat from the Japanese. My French girl waves, you can remind me of mac and cheese. It is what it has to be. I'm killing out who's after me. They have to see me rich, and I swear it wasn't financially. That who we frontin' for? They flying like there's a trampoline. These bitches could've married a guy. It was a Magdalene. My shot like a little bro with Tagalong. It's these instrumentals we got with Dragamon. It's rose with beer broke glass bridges with Dragamon. The nigga with the gate and Sega was double Dragamon. The Megatron landing in Lebanon. We was slapping that back and forth like a tetraball. Used to live on French Street, right in the Esplanade. Bitches wanna ship and make us film it like espionage. You know that's why they set for it. Like why you niggas ain't potential net for it? Chopping in shit so we win. Like connect for the cylinder.
Just imagine I got my whole life pretending to be white. Thinking I'm white. Everybody tells me that. Just wondering what the fuck this is.
Maybe when we go on tour, it's all shootings. Like other straps got kicked, I gotta shoot it. Nigga, if you talk that talk, you gotta do it. Why they try me? I wear my heart on my iron sleeve. I'm the last of a down bread. Why they try me? I wear my heart on my iron sleeve. I'm the last of a down bread. Like he just wanna go on tour and make music. But every time you go on tours, it's all shootings. The last of a dying breed.
Yeah, I'm the last of a dying breed. I uppercut these fucks in the chin and they fly with ease. I bleed what I have to bleed. It's blood what I have to see. So big, don't sit with your fam. I call it Applebee's. Who the fuck trying to get stuck? Tell them ask for me. That match pack about to get struck. I brought the gasoline. I've never lost. I got OGs to get it back for me. Call me down, call me the crown, call me your majesty, God. They try to handle me, Lord. No, I'll play that. The bullets in that great Mac A-track. They go way back. A violent mob, top your mob. Like where the safe at? Put numbers on your head. You already covered in face tats, boy. Why they always trying to snake that, boy? Charlie got the defibrillator to shake that, boy. Forget about it. You turn me to Rocky ASAP, boy. I'm the last of a dying breed that wanna break that, boy. Like bringing all that beat to the farm. My man's branded you. If you don't get respect in the streets, I can't stand with you. They tell you you a threat on the beat. Your man's scamming you. The Benz is like a beast when it spins. Crash Bandicoot. Pull up with a camera crew. Cannons in your face now. Anybody that's lying to us is lying face down. White boy, nice with a pen. This ain't no 8 Mile. We playing hopscotch in the spots where the body's traced out. Cause when you go on tour, it's all music. And baby, when we go on tour, it's just shootings. Drive-bys, your eyes wide shut, we gone Kubrick. See, we ain't really got all that talk, we just do shit.
I wear my heart on my iron sleeve. I'm the last of a down bread. Why they try me? I wear my heart on my iron sleeve. I'm the last of a down bread. Like he just wanna go on tour and make music. the last Madonna. And every time you go on tours, it's all shootings. The last Madonna.
Which one's better? Which one's better? Trick question. Almost. That's all it gets. Emergency, we're fucked. Smoke.
Yeah. All I have in this world is my balls and my work.
I pulled two horrible hairs out of my neck, and there's a third one in there. The one was folded up like a fucking folding escape ladder. Like it was trying to get out and just kept turning side to side. So why can't we program this internet radio to have like a timer come on a certain time? Oh, that wouldn't help.
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so
why, but
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so
And then it's so lost, I think back to the girl on the side.
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hit it so
That's what I know for.
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hit it so I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hit it so
I got a Google type of question, but I gotta go to Wikipedia. How many Jamaican women are there in the world? Google won't judge me, it'll just try to sell me weird shit basically. How come I can order a Russian bag and not a Jamaican bag? What the fuck? I get your healthcare and
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it so I'm just dealing with my boys and I can get it
oh, it's raining.
that. Guns with suppressors like I'm ready for combat. Yo, A-Star, thought these fuck niggas beyond that. It's one phone call, 7 niggas in all black. We ready, nigga. Hot back and blow deadly, nigga. Stays in my hand, can't talk it, it's too heavy, nigga. Yeah, hot back and blow deadly, nigga. Stays in my hand, can't talk it, it's too heavy, nigga. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Yo, I'm coming straight from the West End. Move from the Jane to the West End. Watch how you talk when you walk through my hood, cause you know that my niggas be pressing. Heavy artillery weapons. Ain't really into the questions. I ain't condoning no violence. These youngins are wildin', they move kinda reckless. Got the keys, police stay patting niggas, stay cheese. I'm familiar face taxing niggas, safety. Didn't even wanna slap the nigga, he made me. Ain't nobody telling me nothing. I knew from a youngin' that I be the one I hit stuntin'. Now all of these rappers is bugging. You live in the burbs and you act like you came up from nothing. Shout out to my niggas on the plaza. Lane to connections, Southside Gaza. When I roll my backwood, better have Brava. I never leave the house without my iPhone charger. Wallahi, my money's a rob ya. Abdi Muhammad Mustafa. African man, that's my barber. Jamaican man, that's my shasta. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. These rappers, they in the booth. Lie in the booth. What's that got the realest? Just look at the proof. I'm living proof. The city's so litty cause we got the juice. We got the juice. So we got the juice. I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? Get strict, jungle to the
Tastes like monkey stick.
Rex week deep. I can tell a West End nigga by the way you speak, Birds chirping loud in the hood, always lose they beaks. Know that shotty with bodies got dumped in the creek. Stop, freeze, what I mean looking for me. The chick I got that degree, what do you mean? Bitch, you don't know what I seen. Bitch, you ain't been on the scene. Record is clean, I'm too wavy. Man, cause your man wanna date me. I got the sauce, gravy. More than they cannot replace me. Cause I'm from the West End. Bitch, nigga, better watch that top and find out you top to the cops. Don't wanna turn hot on your block. I'm from the West End. So they claim you a bad man, but gal, what a bad girl crew. Let me show you what a bad girl do. Bet you didn't know that. I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying?
We have breaking news from Ottawa. The Prime Minister has admitted he made a mistake in the growing wheat controversy and is apologizing to Canadians.
Details now on Berlin Hill reporter QUEBECOIS.
Why don't you come around here and I'll make you feel right at home? From the couch to the floor, we'll be in the zone. Let's get it on till the dawn arises. Kissing in the midst of the praying horizon. Fuzzy moon chemistry is what I'm feeling from you. A perfect love story with a rough draft prelude. I wanna make it right and follow right through. Honey, breakfast in bed is something I can do for you. Eat your mangoes from the tip of my tongue. You're not can get it done. So baby, give me some, and I can give you some, and we can go from there. Keep it PG, but you see what I mean. Let's go for a let me walk and trail and watch the sunset and the moon and how the whales get rocked by the river and sit on the beach. Quiet times in the city can never be beat. So baby, you can do your thing, and I can do my thing. No, we can do a thing. Say, baby, you can do your thing, so do your thing, and I can do my thing. No, we can do a thing. It's showtime, your time to shine. Escalating at a pace, got no time to be blind. I get it, got it good. You're doing what you shouldn't. Let me tell you, don't you be misunderstood. I'm doing my thing, and you're doing yours. Making life happen and dreaming of the lows. You're dreaming of me, and I'm dreaming world tours. And I think it's very sexy when you show me your full force and dress and caress and get the best of me. I can be your best friend if you let me see what you believe. Honestly, the perfect life could be that, honey. I'll support you in the front row seat. Then, baby, you can do your thing, and I can do my thing. No, we can do a thing. Say, baby, you can do your thing, so do your thing, and I can do my thing. No, we can do a thing, baby. You can do your
It's 1, 2, 3, 4
thing.
p.m. in Detroit, Miami, Montreal, and Toronto. No wonder all such criminal bastards, eh? Connected like that. Yeah, there's like little pairing. What do they have in common? Oh, it's something in common, but not the same as the other two. Miami, Montreal, French. Montreal, Toronto, cold and French. Toronto, Detroit, cold. Detroit, Miami, crooked ass American drug dealing gangster niggas is what that has in common. Did I not look no?
Why don't you come around here and I'll make you feel right at home? From the couch to the floor, we'll be in the zone. Let's get it on till the dawn arises. Kissing in the midst of the prairie horizon. Does moon chemistry is what I'm feeling from you. A perfect love story with a rough draft prelude. I wanna make it right and follow right through. Honey, breakfast in bed is something I can do for you. Eat your mangoes from the tip of my tongue, and I can get it done. So baby, give me some, and I can give you some, and we can go from there. Keep it PG, but you see what I mean. Let's go for a let me walk and trail and watch the sunset and the moon and how the whales get rocked by the river and sit on the beach. Quiet times in the city can never be beat. So baby, you can do your thing, and I can do my thing. No, we can do a thing. Say, baby, you can do your thing, so do your thing, and I can do my thing. No, we can do a thing. It's showtime, your time to shine. Escalating at a pace, got no time to be blind. I get it, got it good. You're doing what you shouldn't. Let me tell you, don't you be misunderstood. I'm doing my thing, and you're doing yours. Making life happen and dreaming of the lows.
The time to try Bromo Seltzer is right now.
Ellery Queen, the singing rat.
Yes, try Bromo Seltzer now, and you'll save money. 20% or more. For right now, your druggist is offering the large 60-cent size bottle of Bromo Seltzer for only 39 cents. This offer is good for a limited time only, so act at once. Remember, Bromo Seltzer fights headache 3 ways.
Ow.
These 3 ways: quick relief from headache pain, fast help for jumpy nerves, quick help for upset stomach. So don't be satisfied with anything that does less for you than Bromo Seltzer. Use it only as directed on the label. For frequent or persistent headaches, see your doctor. For quick, effective relief from common sick headache, get tried and true Bromo Seltzer. And be sure to ask for the large 60-cent size bottle, now selling at the special low price of only 39 cents.
See when you put it like that. You have to give the fucking both numbers. This is all commercials.
All right, Sherlock Holmes, come on, what's on tap for next week?
Funny you should call me that, Chappie.
So,
because next week I'm going to tell about a case I had, which will remind you of one that baffled the great Sherlock himself. It's about a man who goes into his house for an umbrella and disappears. I call my case The Adventure of Mr. Short and Mr. Long. Be sure to listen next Thursday at this same time.
and don't forget the other great Bromo Seltzer show friend, Pop Pop, the show that travels America. Next Monday, Vox Pop travels to Bowling Field in Washington. Fox Johnson and Warren Hull will interview men of our Army Air Force. Consult your local papers for the time and station. Music for the Adventures of Ellery Queen is by Charles Ford.
Listen up, you mug. You're listening to the Crime and Suspense channel on the Rocket Classic Radio Network. So you better listen good. Understand?
Why are you talking? Strange Will. Starring the distinguished Hollywood actor Warren Williams, and featuring Lorene Tuttle and Leo Cleary, with Howard Culver and an all-star Hollywood cast. Original music by Del Castillo. Dead men's wills are often strange. We cannot attempt to understand them or try to find the answers. We can but tell the story.
What are sulfites?
This is Warren Williams bringing you the story of Miser's Gold. But first...
This is a religion, the religion of radio, and this is where we pay homage to the radio that came before us. Is there a fucking
thông嘅話咧，咁我都
If the volume is too low, a track ends at the wrong time, or it just sounds lousy, let us know. Just send an email to wtmk@themushroomkingdom.net.
And if you enable
in
this
your email,
track
describe
title
the problem in as much detail as possible, giving us the name of the track and the name of any track before or after it. Thank you for your help, and keep listening to WTMK, all Mario Radio, all the time.
What do you think he's doing out there, man?
makes me want to show dots. We got to do a video on the duck hunting, and I'll be listening the whole time. No talking loud. Always this. I believe that permanent fucking damage or whatever. This hurts. My lungs hurt. Pretty sure my blood vessels are fine. My lungs hurt. I'm not trying to use synthetic cannabinoids.
Des classes prévues pour le 10 août prochain. Le temps imparti pour boucler le cursus scolaire est insuffisant, affirme la secrétaire générale de la CNEH, Magali Georges, qui dénonce.
You know, as things, people pile into one area, the competitive disadvantage goes away. China still has this incredible system of cluster economics. So, you know, it's just too efficient. You can be in one place. You can get everything you need, not only to do your product, but also to develop new products. And all you have to do is literally walk across the street to get all the components that you need. You can talk to people. You can come up with new designs. And you can't really do that in these new areas.
And so, Winston, the revival of the private sector investment will, is still expected to remain slow. So, what does it tell us about
Chinese government's ability to turn its
economy on a dime? Tells us that people see the future with less exuberant terms, and they see a little bit more risk. They are a little bit more reluctant to lay out the capital investment. But I think all these can change, can co-involve if the government pushes out the right policy.
The B-19 virus
if
makes
the people's expectation, collective expectation, start to change, like what we are witnessing on the Chinese stock market. Now you see that over the past week or 2 weeks, that more and more people feel more optimistic. I think it's the same thing with the economy. It's not just demand and supply. That explains a huge part of this rational part of the decision. But there's another part, that's what the new economists call it narrative economics, meaning that what kind of stories people choose to believe. If they believe that we are going to get through this, and this coronavirus is probably going to stay here like the flu over the last century, then people will find a way to cope with it, and they were going to find a new story to believe in.
So Anna, so actually, as Winston mentioned, China's stocks have extended a bull run for more than a week. And also the Chinese currency yuan has strengthened against the US dollar a lot. So how would you explain this? Why is the yuan spiking?
It's very simple. It's the only place you can go to put your money that has a working economy. Also, the differences between bond yields are attracting a lot of money in. You've seen about $40 billion in hot money flows coming through. Hot money flows have their pluses and minuses because they can disappear just as fast, creating kind of internal pressures and things like that, and dropping things more than they would be naturally. But right now, this is going to continue because people should be looking at it in a couple of phases. One, you have to get past the first surge of the coronavirus. Then you have to get past the second one. Then you have to find the antiviral to kind of hopefully start solving this. But until that time happens, a lot of these economies are going to be in a shambles. You're looking at the United States that came up with 22% of the people that they were testing in Florida were in fact COVID-19 positive. So, and that's going to affect it. You've already seen the states reversing course. They're going back into lockdown. They don't have any choice. They're getting to the point where they're going to be leaving people outside on the sidewalk because they can't take them into the hospital. So that is going to have a massive effect on where those coming out during that period, which is sticking along China.
So, Winston, very briefly, it's been argued that China's central bank will take fewer monetary stimulus measures in the second half. So, what's your take on the monetary policy in the second half of the year, considering all these recent signs of recovery of China's economy?
I think it's the right thing for the Chinese central bank to take a cautionary, note. When only it's necessary. When it's necessary, the monetary stimulus is, is good for the economy. Right now, we don't have any financial institutions to save. We don't have, a lot of like banks or insurance companies are under threat. So there's no need for massive kind of monetary stimulus. As long as the economy starts gearing up, I think the monetary policy just play along, and that's the right thing to do.
Well, we're speaking with Winston Wang, Managing Director of Shipstone Group Limited, and also Anna Tangen, author and columnist. And after a short break, we'll take a look at, is TikTok a national security threat, as U.S. politicians claim? Stay with us.
I am Alka Acharya. I teach at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in India. Today has organized its programs and stressed on bringing in a lot of views from all over. It is an extremely good platform for information and analysis, and I wish it all success in the future.
You're listening to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. China has urged the U.S. to stop using political weapons to suppress China's companies in response to the Trump administration's possible TikTok ban. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that the United States is certainly looking at banning Chinese social media apps, including TikTok. And President Donald Trump also said his administration is looking at banning the app, affirming remarks by his Secretary of State. And U.S. lawmakers have raised national security concerns over TikTok's handling of user data. So, Ina, first of all, Mike Pompeo said in a recent interview that the U.S. is considering banning TikTok and other Chinese apps in the name of national security, and this was echoed by President Trump. What's the U.S. end goal for doing that?
Across the U.S., even
well, this, you have to put logic aside and just know that this is a political consideration as part of Donald Trump's coronavirus playbook. The O'Donnell associate, they came out, they said, "Don't defend yourself, just keep attacking China." So this is just going to be, this is one in a continuing series of incidences where the U.S. is attacking anything that China has that is doing well. As to these, these accusations, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, that's like saying, well, Einer, you could kill somebody, so we're going to lock you up or we're going to kick you out of our country. It doesn't mean I will do it. And there's no case against TikTok. Contrary to what's been happening with Facebook and Twitter, these are all entities that have been caught doing untoward things with their data. There's nothing, absolutely nothing against TikTok. So this is just pure politics. This is a way of vilifying China, and unfortunately, the
And as far as I know, the U.S. government has never banned an app before. So can the U.S. really ban it, and how would that work? And what will be the consequence of that?
Okay, so they have different tools. They could use CFIUS, which is right now going over their Musical. Musical was a $1 billion proposed acquisition that ByteDance, the parent company, was going to make. CFIUS is holding it up. Clearly, it's all over political considerations. I mean, this is a music app. Knowing what somebody is listening to is not going to give much information. And the same thing, TikTok is 15 seconds of mostly dance music by 16 to 24-year-olds. They could also try to go directly at, and this is most likely, they'll try to go directly at Google and also Apple, because they have the dominant stores out there. But your TikTok on your phone will not stop working unless they are able to go through the FCC and say to the FCC, "We want these banned." This is what they're proposing to do in India. It's possible, but there has to be a hearing, so there has to be some sort of due process, and that's what's going to slow this down. And remember, we're talking about 4 months from now, there could be a real sea change in what's happening in the U.S. if TikTok can, kind of hold secure for a little while. Maybe it'll change. Unfortunately, there seems to be a rallying cry every time a Chinese company is mentioned, and security is thrown automatically into the mix. And unfortunately, a lot of congressmen and senators think this is a winning topic, and they jump on it.
And Winston, so some analysts have already raised similar concerns about Trump's approach to another Chinese tech giant, Huawei, saying Trump has inappropriately conflated national security with trade negotiations. So what's your take? Is the potential ban of TikTok like the Huawei case?
Well, I think this is probably the most insecure American president I've ever seen. When you don't have enough confidence, you almost feel that you find conspiracy behind every rock, and you feel people out there are, going to get you. In that case, you could find national security issues with anything. With importing, let's say, chopsticks. Chopsticks could hurt American people, right? Chopsticks could hurt American soldiers. I think it's not entirely strange to me. Back 40 years ago when China, before it was opening up, a lot of people were so worried about national security. They worried that if the country is opened up, then what if, you know, those people, the enemies, are out there to hurt us? And you feel that a lot of people may have bad intentions against you. So that really reflects the kind of confidence level of the president and the Secretary of State. I think they could make a political issue out of it if they want, but that's not really doing any good to the American people, nor to the global economy.
Mm-hmm. And Winston, the U.S. is adding more and more sanctions against China, from Huawei, ZTE to TikTok. So does this mean the decoupling between China and the U.S. is already happening on the technology front?
I think it has been happening for some time. This administration has been doing a lot of things to decouple China and the U.S. For example, the NIH is not going to fund any, in essence, basically foreign-born or particularly, Chinese. A lot of the NIH scientists, biologists were born in China and immigrated to the United States. If you look at the Department of Energy, they have essentially, not hiring any, China-born scientists working in the national laboratories, and almost every sector, every federal
Chinese people are terrified of the Chinese government would not help them for nothing. It's a 50-50 thing, man. Just like
the administration's desire to from China, decouple from China. So I think from the government point of view, they are trying to make that happen for some time. Whether this is able to sort of arm twist the market forces and to try to separate these two countries, it's a different matter. I think it's going to seriously damage the U.S. and China's economy. But how far they can go, I'm not quite sure. They're still unfolding.
Ina, so do American business and firms really want to decouple from China? What will be the consequence for them? I read a recent media report saying that Foxconn plans to invest $1 billion to expand the factory in India. So what do you think about that? Is that a quiet and gradual production shift by Apple away from China?
No, I mean, what it is a shifting into the Indian market. They have a sense that India and China are not getting along, fueled mostly by the U.S.'s desire to use India as a kind of a roadblock to the U.S. But, when you start talking about decoupling, it takes money. Somebody has to invest the money. Who's going to have money? When we come out of this thing, everyone's going to be mired in debt. The last thing you can do is say, oh, I want to spend some more money. No, people will go back to using what is there, what is cheapest. Remember, no one has money for demand either. So if you start saying, oh, let me increase the cost to you for whatever product, people will say, no, I want the cheaper. I don't have enough money as it is. Give me the cheaper one. If the cheaper one comes from China, they'll take it. But, there's a much larger picture to this. When Winston mentioned about they're not going to be funding any scientist who's foreign, remember, 93% of the electrical engineers at the master's and PhD level in the United States, who are they? Foreigners. China's the largest component, followed by India. You go down the list of every critical area where there is some sort of engineering involved, from mechanical to industrial, etc. You're talking between 70 and 90% of these people at the graduate level, the masters and above, are foreigner. So the U.S. is eviscerating itself. It's knocking itself down. And what I put this is Donald Trump is Tanya Harding. Tanya Harding was a wonderful skater, but she became afraid of her competition, so she hired some guys to go break her legs. Okay, and this happened in the 70s. So it's this kind of thing. Whenever a Chinese company starts gaining market share in the U.S. or worldwide, it is automatically attacked. And this is political. It has nothing to do with paranoia. I disagree with them. If the paranoia is anywhere, it should be by the rest of the world against the U.S. because of what happened. All the leaks and things like that from Snowden and others have shown that the U.S. is constantly spying not only on foreign powers and presidents, president, leaders, but also on their own people.
And also talking about China-U.S. trade, these two countries has already, actually signed a phase 1 trade deal in January. But now, actually, recently, the U.S. top trade negotiator Robert Lighthizer said that he doesn't know what the real end goal is of the trade war with China. So, how do you explain that, Ina?
It's simply he doesn't want to come out and say that he wants a regime change, and that's exactly what they're trying to achieve. He was the architect of the Plaza Accords, which were signed with Japan, which is largely responsible for the kind of sideways economic motion that Japan has had over these many years. It involved pegging the currency of the dollar, and it just wreaked havoc. China, seeing that, is not going to sign a similar agreement, and that's what he's after. That was his big moment of success, taking down the Japanese economy. Now he wants to do the same thing to the Chinese economy, but with the added part that ideologically they want to get rid of China. China has been an alternate form of government that has succeeded. So it's an existential threat to this idea that only that American exceptionalism is necessary to bring the world into this democratic, liberal, capitalist order, which is the only, in their view, the only way that you can run a country.
And Wilson, so the bilateral relationship is at a turning point, and the U.S. is adding more and more sanctions. But of course, China needs to respond to the U.S. strategically. So where can the relationship go?
Well, before I answer this question, I think related to the question you just asked, Ina, I'd like to address in a way that's slightly different from what Ina said. I think they do have a goal. That I don't think Robert Lighthizer understands his thoughts well. Their goal is from the re-election. I don't think they are thinking along the other lines. This is why a lot of these close aides are puzzled by Trump's a lot of behaviors. I think kinds of re-election, then everything explains better. So coming back to the question of where is this relationship is going, I think right now we are seeing that a lot of.
What happened to the alarm? Ring the alarm. Oh.
And yes, the Jays will be on TV this week.
So, there's a fuck.
TSC forced to settle with the
they really had to have it on TV like at all, like for no reason at all. Like,
another record for the NASDAQ, and then triple-digit gains on the Dow and the TSX. Business at 26. City News Time 101.
All right, now time for traffic and weather together all on ones. Here's Zach Bodenstein. This report brought to you by Leon's Furniture. Delays East 401 through Mississauga Road, then from Dixon to the 400 Express and Collectors, also through Salem, West 401 outbound, just flow from here, Ontario Collectors to west of Mavis. Elsewhere, we're looking at delays now northbound DVP through Lawrence as things start to fill in through here. South 404 through Shepherd and the Collectors, just very minor slowdowns through there. Westbound QEW, west of Winston Churchill, left lane blocked for construction. It's slow from approaching Aaron Mills to that point. And one minor issue, north 410 Ramsey Courtney Park is the left lane blocked with a stalled vehicle. There's no slowdown in any direction through this entire stretch. Meantime, eastbound still southbound Norway, that intersection dealing with some major problems.
Drinks half of it, sets to the side for later. Forget the other half.
On steels. It's the final day of Leon Save the Tax event. Shop and save the tax on all furniture and mattresses, including sale prices. Shop in store or online, leons.ca for details. With the forecast, Taylor.
Still a little unsettled today, but it's a lot more comfortable. The guaranteed high 27. There's a slight chance of some showers or thunderstorms today. For tonight, a few clouds and 16. For today, the guaranteed high 27. Right now in downtown Toronto, it is mostly cloudy and 25 degrees. 680 News Time 102.
Ontario's latest COVID case count is out, and it certainly is more positive news as we wait for the provincial government to release details on stage number 3 of reopening.
680's Irene Preclet joins us live with more on what to expect in that announcement, which is moments away, and those new case numbers. Irene, Sarah's stage 2 of reopening was regional places outside the GTA.
They're not making their own masks and making enough to sell and still running their own business. They're already running building cars, machines, and truck
things like opening restaurants,
maple syrup, beer, and all that shit. No, they're not.
The regional approach expected
Yeah,
again.
the whole world's going to be calling that fucking phone number hotline to
today,
get
the
masks
majority
and
are in Peel and
South
Toronto.
Africa and
We should
Congo
hear
are about
from
to blow
Premier
up.
Ford
Hong
in
Kong's
just
on the
moments
third
about the
wave.
details of stage 3. He'll be joined by the
Australia
ministers of
is
Health,
apparently in the
Finance,
middle
and
of a
Education.
really bad
Since
second
Ontario started stage 2 a month ago, there's been a
up the
steady
phone to the
downward trend in
library. We're not
cases.
gonna
Only
close the
3 days
schools
with
or
cases above
anything.
200.
It doesn't affect
Reporting
children the
live,
same
Irene
way.
Preclet, 680 News.
Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is apologizing for the ongoing we controversy and admits he made a mistake. With the controversy growing, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressing Canadians and admitting he should not have taken part in the decision-making process to award the We charity a contract to deliver the $900 million student service grant. The involvement that I'd had in the past, that my family has, should have had me remove myself from this discussion. I'm sorry that
people that work in this fucking place in Thailand
for their speaking events and
know
working with We,
who it is.
didn't know the
That's
details
why
of
they
their
don't
pay.
know who the
They
fuck
collectively
all
earned
that
hundreds of
is.
thousands of dollars over several years at We events. The charity also took out a full-page
Serious,
newspaper
look it
ads to
up.
address the controversy and admits it made mistakes as well. The Ethics Commissioner is investigating and some parliamentary committees have launched probes. The Conservatives have called for a criminal investigation. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Toronto sports teams, they've been missed, but there's good news. One was back in action today, while 2 others are getting ready for the return. 680's Momin Qureshi joins us live with more on that.
Everything's half. Why half? Fuck off.
It's only been a few months, Sarah, but for some people it feels like it's been a year since we've really had any sort of Toronto professional sports scene. But TFC kicked things off this morning, playing to a 2-2 draw against DC United in their 4th game down in Florida. Also down in Florida, that's where the Raptors are in that Disney bubble. Kyle Lowry was part of the committee that worked out the rules for how things will be, and he thinks it'll work quite well.
I think our protocols and our health and safety measures have been top notch. I think this thing will work perfectly. I think we've done it. The league and the PA Players Association has done a great job, a phenomenal job of making sure that we're doing everything that we can possibly do to make sure that we're healthy, we're safe, we're in an environment where we can be successful.
Here in Toronto, the Leafs back on the ice as part of their summer camp. Toronto is one of the NHL's fun cities, so several teams will be here. Morgan Riley saying it feels good.
I mean, it feels good to have meetings again, to talk hockey, and be in the gym, be on the ice with your teammates, and I think that it's just enjoyable.
And yes, Blue Jays baseball will be back on TV as of tomorrow on Sportsnet. 2 inter-squad games on Tuesday and Wednesday will be on the air as the Jays ramp up to get ready for their season kickoff. Reporting live, I'm Momin Qureshi.
And happening right now, let's go live to Queen's Park and Premier Doug Ford.
Steady progress on the public health front. Today, 29 out of 34 regions are reopening fewer than 5 new cases a day, with 21 reporting none at all. We're continuing to see a decline in case numbers and in hospitalization. So today, we're ready to take the next step. 24 regions in Ontario, the vast majority of our province, will be able to enter stage 3 this Friday, July the 17th at 12:01 a.m. This includes all communities except the following regions. Toronto, York Region, Peel Region, Durham Region, Niagara, Windsor-Essex, Haldimand, Norfolk, Halton, Hamilton, and Lambton. As we all know, these regions entered stage 2 later on, so we need just a little more time. I want the people in these regions to know that we won't leave anyone behind. And we will provide an update every Monday on regional reopenings. We will keep working until every part of this province gets to stage 3. My friends, this is great news. We're moving forward as a province, but we can't stop. We won't stop until we get every person in Ontario, until we get every worker in Ontario back to work and back on their feet. But today's news is an important step forward. It's an important step in getting life back to normal, and this will mean expanding the limits on public gatherings in regions as they enter stage 3. The new limits will allow up to 100 people to gather outdoors and up to 50 people indoors. At all times during these gatherings, people must continue to practice physical distancing with those outside their social circle. And stage 3 will also give another boost to our economic restart. Nearly all businesses and public spaces will be allowed to open their doors safely. So today, I'm glad to announce the following businesses and places will be allowed to open in stage 3. Dine-in restaurants, bars, gyms, and fitness centers. Most personal care services, live shows, performing arts and movie theaters, casinos, recreational facilities and activities, team sports and live sporting events, and tour and guide services. We have over 170 workplace resources available online to help all of these places reopen safely. And a key part of getting people back to work is making sure parents, workers have their child care support they need. Minister Lecce will have an important message today to update on how we're supporting parents as they return to work. And I know that parents want to know what school will look like this fall. My friends, let me be clear. I want to see every child in Ontario back to school full-time this September. This is what we're working towards with the support of our medical officer of health and our local school boards, and I'm confident that we will get there. But we will not take unnecessary risks when it comes to our children, and that's why we have to continue planning for every possible scenario to keep our kids safe as they get back to school. My friends, we're making steady progress, and we're supporting our own, and we're coming back stronger than ever before. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll hand it over to Minister Elliott.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, we are taking another important step forward in our journey to reopen our province. We are only able to begin moving the province into stage 3 because of the considerable and ongoing efforts of all Ontarians to stop the spread of COVID-19. Physical distancing, wearing face coverings, practicing good hand hygiene, and keeping our social circles safe have been critical in helping to achieve this milestone today, and they will remain critical. We are asking everyone to continue these everyday actions to help keep our friends, neighbors, and family members safe so that we can continue to safely enjoy the loosening of restrictions. As we've done with stage 2, we will continue the ongoing assessment of all regions and will advise whether a specific region is ready to move into stage 3 every week. As we do, we will be able to safely move every region of our province into stage 3, so long as we continue to see public health trends move in the right direction, as they have been. Once we take this important step forward, we expect the province will stay in stage 3 for the foreseeable future. In recognition of the fact that we will remain in stage 3, our Chief Medical Officer of Health and public health experts will continue to closely examine the evolving situation to advise our government on when public health restrictions like the size of social gatherings can be gradually loosened. At the same time, they will diligently monitor for any spikes in cases and may recommend these same measures be tightened to ensure the safety of all Ontarians. Thank you, and now I'd like to invite Mr.
How do people say that word? Even Dougie couldn't say it yesterday. Ontarians.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon, everyone. From our initial response to COVID-19 on March 17th, when we declared a state of emergency, and on March 25th, when we announced Ontario's action plan responding to COVID-19, and through our safe and gradual staged approach to reopening our province, starting with a framework to reopen our province on April 27th, through stage 1 on May 19th, and stage 2 on June 7th.
Okay, you're the valedictorian. Shut up.
Has been to restart the economy as quickly as it is safe to do so. As you heard from the Premier, almost all businesses will be able to reopen in stage 3, as long as they follow health and safety guidelines. In fact, when a region moves into stage 3, almost 99% of the local economy will be available to reopen. We must work together to ensure that the small but important number of businesses still facing restrictions in stage 3 are able to open safely as soon as possible.
You don't understand.
The government is committed to working with those not currently moving into stage 3 to consider innovative ideas to modify their operations so they can adhere to the principles of our public health experts who will tell us that we can open them at the appropriate time. They can visit ontario.ca/reopen to submit their plans. As the Premier has said on numerous occasions, no business should reopen until they feel safe to do so. It is through our collective efforts that Ontario is in a strong position amidst a global pandemic. It is continuing to take a human toll here in our province and unfortunately to a much greater degree in some other places beyond our borders. We're in this position because we have made the choice to act responsibly and treat each other with respect. Whether it's wearing a mask when we can't physically distance, working from home when possible, or adjusting our businesses to adhere to public health advice. As we enter stage 3, choosing to act responsibly and respectfully is more important than ever to avoid taking a step backwards. We may be in stage 3 for a while, but our economic recovery has already started. We remain committed to supporting people and businesses who are struggling because of COVID-19. They have done their part, and they can count on us to do ours. Thank you, and now I'll turn it over to Minister Ledger.
Well, good afternoon. In early March, we made a commitment to Ontario parents to ensure our kids remain safe and ensure parents can return to work with confidence. We did that by allowing the childcare sector to reopen in mid-June. That is why on July 27th, all Ontario childcare centres will be able to operate in increased cohorts of 15 children with continued strict health and safety requirements in place.
That's going to blow up with somebody's
childcare is to ensure that all working moms and dads can return to work safely. So today's changes will allow the sector to reach approximately 90% of the capacity that existed pre-COVID. Make no mistake, when it comes to your kids' safety, we'll do whatever it takes. We also know that parents and students are looking for clarity around what school will look like in September. And as I've said since we announced the plan for the return to school several weeks ago, we need to be prepared for all eventualities and adopt a prudent flexibility for whatever path the outbreak takes. This is no change. As the public health data has improved over the past several weeks, we've been working closely with medical experts to enable conventional daily delivery in September. This plan will continue to put health and safety at the absolute forefront, as it always has been. We will be cautious, methodical, and focused on safety to get this right, because keeping your child safe is what matters most. I'll be sharing more details soon about the return to school plan, which I know is top of mind for many parents around the province. We are confident in this plan to enable parents to return to work while having the peace of mind that their children are cared for. Thank you.
Get you fired from your job.
Okay, we'll go to the phone line for questions. First question.
First question comes from Sean Jeffers from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sean.
Good afternoon, Premier. I wanted to ask you about the length of stage 3. Minister Elliott alluded to the fact that this will be the reality for the foreseeable future. Does that mean until we have a COVID-19 vaccine? Is it a year? Is it a year and a half? I'm wondering if you can tell us about that.
Well, maybe I'll pass that over to the Minister of Health.
Well, certainly we're all hoping that there will be a vaccine in short order, but apart from that, we will remain in stage 3, but depending on how stage 3 moves forward in different parts of the province, if we keep our numbers down, if there are no new outbreaks of COVID-19, then we will be able to gradually expand things like the size of gatherings, for example. Right now it's 50 indoors, 100 outdoors. We may be able to increase that number, but that will be a gradual loosening of the public health restrictions still within stage 3. There will be some areas that are still not considered safe to open, for example, amusement parks, water parks, dancing in bars and restaurants, karaoke bars, and some of the other things, because there's still some obvious concerns about that. But we will be following that, and at such time as it's considered safe, when we don't have increases in our numbers of COVID-19, we'll be able to loosen them. But certainly the vaccine would help, but we're not counting on that in the next very short while in any event.
Maybe a follow-up for Minister Phillips, actually. Minister, you mentioned that there would be supports in place to help businesses that would not be able to reopen. But isn't what those businesses really need is financial support rather than reopening?
This is a follow-up with 2 questions.
Well, I think all the businesses that I've spoken to want to reopen. And so, as Minister Elliott pointed out, there are some businesses that right now, the best advice of the Chief Medical Officer is shouldn't be reopening. But if you take amusement parks, for example, one of the things that those businesses will have the opportunity to do is submit their approach to reopening. So we want to remain open to their ideas and their suggestions about what's necessary for them to be able to be safe. In the meantime, of course, businesses do have access to the wide array of supports that have been provided both by the provincial government and by the federal government. But as I said, in the regions that are reopening, 99% of businesses will be available to reopen. Now, I should just reemphasize something the Premier has said, which is that no business, no part of our economy should reopen until it feels safe to do so. But the fact that we've gotten to the point where there is probably less than 1% of the businesses that can't reopen is a good sign. It's a compliment to the 14.5 million Ontarians and the work that they've done. And we'll continue to work with that small but important group and work with the Chief Medical Officer to see if there's a way to have them reopen safely. But of course, safety is our top priority.
Next question.
Next question comes from Chanel Call from CP24. Please go ahead.
Hi, Chanel.
Hi, my first question is for Minister Elliott, if possible. Just wondering, based on the case data that we have right now, how close is Toronto and the GTA to moving to stage 3?
Well, there's several other communities that moved into stage 2 before Toronto did. We expect that it will happen in the same way because the Chief Medical Officer of Health and the Public Health Officers at the command table need to see about 4 weeks data to understand what's going on locally, to make sure that there are no further public health concerns. So we expect that the next group will be the second group that moved into stage 2 will be the second group to move into stage 3, just because of the time frames that have elapsed, and then Toronto will follow. So those are the general terms that we're looking at it in terms of reopening, because of the fact that we need to have that public health data. Even up to last night, we were still receiving data before the public health officer felt that it was safe for these 24 units to move into stage 3. We'll be looking at that as well for Toronto.
And first, the question for the Premier, just wondering, there are some industries, like you spoke about, like amusement parks, big sporting events that are not included really in this stage, and this is the final stage. So if there isn't, specific financial support for those industries, how do you expect those businesses to survive when really they rely on large-scale gatherings, which they can't have for now?
Well, what we've always set our goals to open up everyone, and there are certain circumstances, to be at large concerts. Right now, at this point, unless the Chief Medical Officer of Health approves it. But I'll give you an example for banquet halls. If they can come up with a proper plan, or smaller amusement parks can come up with a proper plan, it can go to the Chief Medical Officer. If his team approves it, then they can open up. We don't have to put another order. We don't have to change the order. But I encourage as many people as possible, put your plans together, and let's see what the Chief Medical Officer of Health says.
Next question.
Next question comes from Travis Damrash from Global News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Travis.
Mr. Premier, good afternoon. So I know that you guys have struggled with areas in the GTA when it comes to the numbers, particularly Etobicoke and Scarborough. I'm wondering if you or the Health Minister could just touch on why more aggressive measures aren't being taken in those areas to get the numbers down.
Well, actually, we did take aggressive measures. We sent in the mobile units. We set up testing right by Humber College. You can drive through there at any single time, or go to the local hospital or the testing center. And that goes for Scarborough too. We rolled into Scarborough with 2 mobile testing units, and it was a big success actually. So the numbers have come down, and we're going to continue monitoring it. But for Toronto, they opened up later, along with a few others. And as the Minister of Health mentioned, we have to see 4 weeks of data to take a look at it, and that's what the Chief Medical Officer would like. But I hopefully, and I'm hoping, if the cases continue declining, like we've seen, then we'll be able to open up in stage 3 in other regions, hopefully sooner than later.
Follow-up?
And, you know, a lot of the businesses that will reopen, gyms, for example, you know, I think of the one in my neighborhood, they're having to incur a lot of expenses for PPE and for just, you know, plexiglass barriers and things like that. Why can't the government set up a fund for some of these businesses? Because they're taking a hit.
The same reason the government doesn't run the food supply chain, they just own the terminal.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of areas that they can go online and look at some of the areas that we can support them provincially and federally. But to be very frank, if we funded every single company in the province, we just don't have the money. It's very simple, but there are a lot of opportunities for companies to go out there and take a $40,000 loan from the federal government, and a few other areas that we're supporting them in, no matter if it's the rent subsidy or other areas, reduced hydro rates. So we're doing everything we can to support these small businesses, but the best way to help them, let them open their doors and get their customers back.
Next question. And the question comes from Lucas Meyer from News Talk 1010. Please go ahead.
Hi, Lucas.
Hi, thank you very much. For Minister Lecce, I want to go back, if you can, to the cohort increase and getting to 90% capacity. So are you saying that that's going to be effective July 27th? We'll be in that 90% number, and for that 10%, that's still going to mean a lot of kids that either could have had a spot will not. How is that going to be accounted for? Could you clarify those points, please?
Yeah, thank you. Our commitment is to make sure that we put in place a health protocol that keeps these kids safe. We've done so during the emergency phase of childcare. We've done so during the next phase of our recovery. And today what we're signaling is as of the 27th of July, operators that are open or not can operate using a cohort of 15 kids plus the ECs. That is what the Chief Medical Officer of Health has endorsed and supported, while maintaining strict health and safety protocols. By doing so, by reopening according to a 15 cohort from 10, that will cover roughly 91% of existing capacity pre-COVID. That is a good thing for many parents in the province as they return to work. We're obviously maintaining the permission of permitting it to be permissible for home-based childcare to continue during the spring. Summer camps are coming along, and summer schools and summer work. So there are plans in place to ensure that we really try to cover as many parents in the province so that they can get back to work
other than the computer job, right?
So how confident are you, Minister, that you will actually reach that? Because we still don't quite know exactly how many daycares are reopened. How confident are you that we're going to hit that 90%? And if I could squeeze in one other question, do you think there's enough capacity for schools to have additional classes in just other schools? That's something that came out of the Catholic Board's draft today. Do you think it's possible that we're only going to need those other, elementary schools and high schools for additional classes, or are we going to have to look at, other municipal buildings?
Well, we've heard from childcare operators. I visited one as recently as Friday. We've heard from AMO and from a variety of municipal service managers, from people in the front lines, our ECEs, is they wanted three things. They wanted clarity and a 2-week heads up minimum to enable them to reopen. We've done that. They want us to maintain the funding to ensure that as capacity, that differential capacity continues to be funded by the province. We're doing that in conjunction with the federal government. And they, of course, wanted us to increase the cohort in a methodical way that aligns with the public health advice to keep the staff and, of course, our kids safe. We're doing that. We think that plan makes sense. It'll support the reopening of our economy, help people get back to work. And we do have confidence we will reach that capacity over time. Obviously, as the Premier and the Minister of Finance have said, they're permitted to open as of the 27th. Of course, operators will take the time to get it right. But we know with this type of notice, we'll give them, a sense of planning certainty, and we'll get them up and running as soon as possible. With respect to schooling, The fact is the government continues to prepare for three circumstances because that is the prudent way forward to make sure that the continuity of learning is not interrupted as a consequence of the challenges that could manifest in the fall. And we see in other jurisdictions around the world that these challenges are manifesting before us. So we have to get this right, be thoughtful, and make sure that health and safety remains the guiding principle. We've said to school boards that they can be innovative when it comes to spacing and classes. We've also indicated that because of the work of the people of this province, adhering to public health advice, because of our collective efforts, we're in a much different reality than we were a few weeks ago when we announced our plan for schools. And that gives us promise that we can get back to daily conventional learning, as the Premier's indicated, is clearly the preference of working people in this province. And so we're going to be working with Dr. Williams over the coming days to provide that certainty and to enable school boards to have more of that sense of guidance on the utilization of classes in schools and outside of schools for the way forward.
Next question.
Those are the aerosols. It smells like peanut butter and Play-Doh.
From the Toronto Sun. Please go ahead.
I do.
Good report. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now that Toronto's been approved as an NHL hub city, are you aware that NBC will serve as host broadcasters for all games in Toronto? And a large number of Americans will be flown into the province, basically taking jobs of unemployed Canadian broadcast workers, the best in the world, who haven't worked in more than 4 months. What do you say to these highly skilled professionals who are losing jobs to Americans in their own city on a deal negotiated by their own government?
Well, to be very frank, I don't know who has the contract for NHL or who has the contract for Monday Night Football per se, or Major League Baseball. I always understood that for years, ever since I can remember. We always watched Saturday night hockey, CBC or another network. So I'll look into that.
Another network. Yeah, but Canadian network, Dougie, Canadian. You left out. No, it's always CBC. And it's CTV and CBC.
I hear you loud and clear, and I don't disagree.
And the president learned in French on the French channel.
Thank you.
Next question. Next question comes from Robert Bernstein from the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, Premier. I'm just a little confused about the stage 2 to stage 3 timetable. Toronto lagged, specifically Toronto lagged behind, obviously, other regions moving into stage 2. But the minister, the health minister, said that it might take 4 more weeks of data. So does that mean that Toronto might have to wait until middle of August before it can enter stage 3 if the coronavirus numbers remain low?
No, what the minister said is Dr. Williams likes to see 4 weeks of data and review it. So hopefully it'll be sooner than later, but maybe the minister wants to clarify it.
Sure, I'm happy to clarify it. It is 4 weeks of complete data. Several weeks have already happened for Toronto. So the next group would come up presumably next Monday for opening on Friday. Toronto would be in the next group. So they need to have that full 4 weeks. So you don't start again all over with 4 weeks to count Toronto's data. Half of it's already been calculated and we've already seen it. I hope that helps.
Madeline?
Yeah, thanks, Minister. Premier, back to you. We see that amusement parks and water parks are not permitted. You were saying earlier in the pandemic that Santa's lobbying you directly.
Yeah,
does that mean that parks like Santa's Village, places like that, aren't going to be open? And why can't water parks open, given that people splash pads, for example, have already been open?
So before I pass it over to the Minister of Finance, what I understand, and so let's use Santa's Village, great place, and hopefully people will go visit soon. But if they come up with a proper plan that keeps people social distanced and in other areas and puts it forward to the chief medical officer and they approve it, then they can open and we don't have to put an order through at all. And that goes, for what I understand, for banquet halls and other water parks as well. But I'll have the Minister of Finance clarify that.
Why is it the Minister of Finance? So much of this
hopefully Santa's been registered in the lobbyist registry because he's been working very hard. As the figure mentioned earlier, so yes, the figure is exactly right. The amusement parks and water parks, the reason that they're being held back is because the chief medical officer at this time, and as I said, 99% of businesses are able to reopen, but there are a small portion that because of the danger that COVID-19 presents and because of the large groups generally attending at those sorts of facilities, that the chief medical officer has said they are not able to move into stage 3. However, we have asked them to put forward safe reopening plans, and then the chief medical officer will work with them and with us to see that those plans, if they meet his expectations, could reopen in some sort of a modified fashion.
Next question. Next question comes from Cynthia Malkin from City News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hello, Premier. I'm wondering if you can explain why the social bubbles have not been increased. Public gatherings have, indoor gatherings have, but not social bubbles. They're staying at 10. Why not increase it to 15 or 20?
I'll have the Minister of Health answer that. Thank you.
You talk to one person,
the social circles will stay at 10 across the province, regardless of what stage people are in. We can probably expand them as time goes on, but this is where physical distancing does not have to be maintained within this group, and that is based on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. We want to have a gradual movement of reopening the economy and reopening social connections as well, because we've seen what's happened in some other jurisdictions where it's pretty frightening actually, and we want to make sure that we do this properly and safely here in Ontario so that we don't have to move back in the other direction and backtrack and close things up. We want to make sure that this is going to be safe for everyone, but the social circles will be something that we will take a look at as we move through stage 3, and we will be able to gradually expand them, but just not right yet.
Thank you. And my next question is about long-term care, Minister, and I'm wondering, I know families are allowed to see their loved ones once a week for 30 minutes. Is there any plan to open that up further? Many have been begging to be allowed in and be their caregivers as well.
Well, I know that is something that many people have voiced their concerns about. They are
now all of a sudden they all want to be there all the
their
time.
loved ones outside, but they're still, in most cases, not able to approach them, to touch them, to be close to them. So I know that some people want to be able to do that and want to be able to move inside as well so that they can help with the care of their loved one. That is something that I know is under active discussion with the Minister of Long-Term Care and the Chief Medical Officer of Health. It isn't something that can happen just yet, but we hope that it will be fairly soon, because I know that this has been a really difficult situation for family members as well as their loved ones who are in our long-term care homes.
Last question. That question comes from Mike Crowley from ABC News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Premier. Given the number of incidents today, feel that it's safe to open bars for indoor serving customers indoors at this point in time?
Well, we take that advice off the health table and chief medical officer. We're going to
generate revenue, and it's going to pay for
people within the bars and social distancing. They won't be up there dancing and singing away, but they can go in there and have a drink at the bar or on the patio, and we have to eventually open these restaurants up and get people back on their feet. But some might be,
those droplets are
I see these numbers from Florida, and yet they're staggering. 15,000 people that contacted COVID in a day. That is scary, but we're being pretty vigilant. We aren't rushing into anything. We're opening up slowly in stage 3 and being very, very cautious about it. But you make a good point.
And if you could clarify something about the limit of 50 people indoors for the maximum size of gatherings. When you look in the section of the document about cinemas, movie theaters, and performance stages, it says that this applies to the entire facility, regardless of the number of theaters. So
can you clarify, or maybe Minister Elliott, can you clarify if that means that you have a 50-person limit, even if you're talking a multiplex cinema? Would that be correct?
So, Mike, if I didn't know different, I swear you were listening to the questions that I was asking the Chief Medical Officer last week on the cabinet call, saying, hey, this doesn't make sense. We have, cinemas that have 12, 15 different theaters, and, what are we going to do? Put 50 people in the whole theater, and one in each movie theater? So, I'll send it over to Minister of Finance to clarify.
He's
it.
from the hood, from Toronto.
They have to come up with a plan. They have to get approved from the Chief Medical Officer.
How many nights did you sit up behind some fucking random ass apartment building drinking
gathering limit? Now, that would not include, as you'd see in the document, staff, but that would include patrons. This is an area where Minister McLeod has already been working with the associations that represent theaters to work on that safe reopening plan that I talked about. So, the kinds of considerations that the Chief Medical Officer is concerned about, of course, is, how many washrooms are there, the concession stands, making sure that there aren't too many people, so it isn't just about the theater rooms themselves, it's about the broader facility. But this is an area where, as I said, we've committed with those very small number of businesses that aren't part of the 99%.
Why don't you just close the washrooms and stop selling drugs?
To work with them, to work with the Chief Medical Officer, to try to make sure that they can reopen, but only when they can do so safely.
And you've been listening to live coverage of Premier Doug Ford's daily briefing from Queen's Park today. Lots to digest, from stage number 3 reopenings to news about childcare centers.
We now know which regions of Ontario can enter stage 3 and when. 680's Irene Preflett joins us live with the latest from the Ford government. Irene. Sarah, stage 3 starts this Friday morning for much of the province. But Tanagens, including GTHA communities, will remain in stage 2. Health Minister Christine Elliott says they will re-examine who should move forward every week.
Once we take this important step forward, we expect the province will stay in stage 3 for the foreseeable future. In recognition of the fact that we will remain in stage 3, our Chief Medical Officer and public health experts will continue to closely examine the evolving situation.
The new rules will see restaurants, gyms, and casinos reopen with limits on how many people can be inside at a time. Indoor gathering limits will increase to a maximum of 50 people, and outdoor limits will increase to 100. The province says it will still require people to practice physical distancing with anyone who is not in their 10-person social circle. Among the areas in stage 3, we've got communities such as Barrie, Muskoka, Peterborough, Kingston, and Ottawa. As for the case numbers, it's another day below 100. 116 new COVID-19 cases reported today. More than half of those are in Toronto and Peel regions, which are among those that will remain in stage 2. Peel and Toronto will join the rest of the GTA during the reopening in stage 2. Reporting live, I'm Irene Preflett, 680. Meantime, Education Minister Christine Elliott says as of July 27th, child care centers can increase to 15 people.
And what happened? The Blue Beetle saved by
But as soon as he got to work,
kids,
the underworld got busy and
which is also
persuaded him to come in with them.
Cut off on the license versus
Told him he'd never succeed honestly because of his prison record. Did he go in with them? No, he refused. But he preferred to go straight. Wise decision. Ordinarily, yes. The gang wouldn't let him go straight. They wanted him to give them inside information about the place where he worked. They threatened to frame him and have his parole canceled so he'd be sent back to jail. But what can those gangsters hope to gain by such tactics? Recruit for their campaign of crime, inside information about the place where the parolee works, power over first offenders and so forth. And where is Horton now? Back in jail on a charge of robbery with a gun. Framed evidence, I'm certain. Do you consider the case big enough to enlist the services of the Blue Beetle? Any case that affects the welfare of the unfortunate is big enough to interest the Blue Beetle. And what are you going to do? I promised Mike Mannigan I'd help him investigate this case. Jim Horton's father was a pal of Mike's before he died. And Mike is interested in helping Jim. I see. Well, if there's anything I can do to help Danny, you know I'll be glad to do it. Oh, thanks, Doc. Well, I'll see you later. I'm going to meet Mannigan down at police headquarters. Will you be back later to change into your Blue Beetle chain armor and mask if anything develops? I've got it all here in this briefcase so I can make a quick change on the job. Well, be careful, Danny boy. I will, Doc. So long. Where are you heading for, Mike? The old Empire warehouses on Dock Street. What's down there? And I got a mysterious phone call from Joe Riley to meet him down there. He's been working on the Helen Downey kidnapping case. Oh, yeah. She's the daughter of the parole commissioner, isn't she? That's right. What's he found? He didn't say. He just told me to meet him in front of the... Hey! Hey, look at that car coming. Say, here's where we make a pinch for speeding. Look out, Mike. Machine gun. Wait, what the... Hey, Mannigan. Somebody fell or was pushed out of that speeding car. Go over to the curb, Mike. Yeah. And them guys were shooting at us. Did they get you, Mike? No. How about you, Danny? Not a scratch, but it was close. You hop out and take a look at the body, Danny, while I see if I can trail that other car. Never mind that car now, Mike. I've got the license number. Go phone for an ambulance while I look at this poor fellow. Okay. I'll be back in a minute. There's a drugstore on the corner. Joe Riley, bound and...
Take the Batman approach.
Joe.
You get enough money.
Joe Riley.
You don't know what you do. Fuck.
Can you hear me?
Business.
It's Dan Garrett. Oh, Dan. Hello, Joe.
Batmobile didn't have no license plates.
Tell Mannigan.
He's self-insured. He had the money.
They made me phone him. Who made you phone? The Mulberry Hill gang. They've got the girl. In the... Joe, where have they got the girl? Dead. Who is it, Danny? The ambulance will be ready. Hey, that's Joe Riley. It was Joe Riley. Dead? Yes. Who done it? Did he say? Yes, the Mulberry Hill gang. That's the gang that hangs out in Gus Heinrich's bar and grill. What's the matter, officer? Oh, drunk. And a cop at that. He ain't drunk. He's been shot. Shot? Say, I thought I heard some shots a while back. You see, here comes the ambulance, Mike. Stand right there, mister. Give him all the air he can get. Well, then he ain't yet. He's hurt badly. Somebody hurt, I guess. Yeah, looks like a cop. Yeah. Stand back, no out of him. Make way there. Over here with that stretcher. Easy with him, boys. He's pretty weak from loss of blood. But, Dad, I thought you said... Don't let on, Mike. We may be able to learn more if the gang thinks Riley's still alive.
I guess you're supposed to shout shit at you.
Well, what's yours, buddy? Ginger ale. And what? And nothing. Just plain ginger ale. Dan Garrett's a policeman, Ed. Policemen don't drink. Oh, yeah? Since when? Hello, Drummond. I see you're in civilian clothes, Garrett. Is this your night off? No, it's my uniform's night off. Clever guy, Garrett. You should be on the radio.
Make a joke about the Korean drive.
Oh, say, I hear Joe Riley in your precinct got bumped off tonight. Your information must have come from the wrong source. Riley's still alive, and he's talking. Really? Well, it's nice to have seen you. I'll be getting along. And by the way, Drummond. Yeah? How do you keep your hair so black and glossy? You know spring chicken. It's a special diet I have. Uh-huh. Spelled D-Y-E-I-T. Oh, boy, you sure are quick on the pickup. You're in the wrong business. Not for the kind of pickups I like to make. Well, if you pick up the culprits who shot Riley, recommend me as their lawyer. Anytime a crook needs a lawyer, you usually get the business, Drummond. If the price is right.
Stripes and patches everywhere.
You know, this is Heinrich.
I still can't explain this demarcation there.
What's
I don't know why.
Riley ain't dead. What? Dan Garrett, the cop? Oh, sure, I bet. I'll get some of the boys down there right away, and we'll take the girl to a new hideout. Sure, right away. The Blue Beetle. Yes, the Blue Beetle. What do you want? I ain't hiring no entertainers for my cafe. Whom do you hire to do your kidnapping? What? Oh, so Joe Riley... Talk plenty. And so did you over that phone just now. I don't know nothing. You'd better learn something mighty quick. The Blue Beetle doesn't waste time. You got nothing on me. I am a respectable Cateomo. Not from behind that desk, Heinrich, before I blast you with my magic ray. No, take it easy, Blue Beetle. I don't know nothing about Joe Riley. Where have you hidden Commissioner Downey's daughter? I don't know nothing. Come on, speak up before I tear you apart. Who shot Riley and kidnapped Helen Downey? I don't know that. Get up or I'll give you some more of the same. The big boss would kill me. Come on, get up on your feet. You're going to tell me what I want to know. What's the matter, Gus? Say, it's the Blue Beetle. Hey, Eddie, give me that bottle. Stand where you are, or I'll... Got him. Got the Blue Beetle with this paperweight. That's good work, Gus. He's out cold. What do we do with him? Tie him up. We'll take him out to the old... Hello? Who? Yeah. What? Joe Riley was already dead when the ambulance picked him up. Then he didn't talk. Good. What? Flanagan is on his way over here? What about? Oh, my license plate on the murder car. Say, I fixed that. Okay. Goodbye. What's the matter, Gus? Mouthpiece just fallen. Now look, Nosey. Mike Flanagan is on his way over here. You get my sedan. Drive it out to Lover's Leap and run it off the cliff into the sea. You got it? Yeah. Be sure to take off the license plate first and destroy them. Also take one license plate for my roadster. Oh, what's the idea? I'll say the murderers of Joe Riley must have stolen one of my license plates and used it on their car. The copper. What about the Blue Beetle? I'll take care of him. Beat it, Nosey. Out the back way. Just a minute. I'm coming. First, I'll open the safe and make this look like a robbery.
We're going to get rid of the car anyway? This is the license. Why did you do it to license?
It's you, Officer Flanagan. Come in. I want to talk to you, Heinrich. I want to talk to you about Joe Riley's murder. Yeah? Your license plates are on the car. Hey, who's that on the floor? That's a little present for you, Flanagan, with my compliment. The Blue Beetle, well, I'll be... What's he doing here? I caught him robbing my safe. I overpowered him. All yours, Flanagan. A suitable reward for a brave and capable guardian of the law. What will happen to the Blue Beetle now? Will he be taken to police headquarters and unmasked? Or will he escape and pick up the trail of the murderous kidnappers? Is there some connection between the kidnapping of the parole commissioner's daughter and the parole racket? These questions will be answered in the next episode of The Blue Beetle.
Oh, this is what I needed to make a Mohawk mess. Oh, and Diane, I get to use cookies I want. For cultural sensitivity reasons is why.
The Blue Beetle is a copyrighted Fox feature appearing in Mystery Men Comics magazine and the Blue Beetle magazine. The Blue Beetle is on the air twice a week on this same station. Consult the broadcast schedule in your local newspaper. And don't forget to listen in to
the government wants radio stations out there just like they want paper. Wristwatches and bicycles. Multiple turntables set up to like clickies are like, what the fuck's the deal? What are we doing there? This dead space at the end of the fucking record for real? How long does that run on for? It run on forever, right?
The Blue Beetle.
I know what I have. Yeah, Tiny Tim.
Sweeping down upon the underworld of Matt Gangland comes the mysterious, all-powerful character who is a problem to the police, but a crusader for law. In reality, Dan Garrett, I will keep a toast, loved by everyone, but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle. As the Blue Beetle, he hides behind a strange mask and a suit of impenetrable blue chain armor, flexible as silk, but stronger than steel.
They call them comic books first. What is this, the late 40s, right?
Today's episode of the Fox feature, The Blue Beetle, is the second part of a story entitled Saved by a Hair.
Pilot or pre-production?
In the first part of the story, Patrolman Dan Garrett has taken on the investigation of the parole racket in an effort to save Jim Horton, son of a friend of Mike Manigan, from a long term in jail. The body of Officer Joe Riley, investigating the kidnapping of Parole Commissioner Downing's daughter Helen, has been tossed out of a fleeing sedan. The license number of the murder car leads to Gus Heinrich's cafe owner. While questioning Heinrich, Dan Garrett, in his Blue Beetle disguise, is temporarily stunned by a blow on the head. Nosy, one of Heinrich's henchmen, has been sent to cover up the murder trail by running Heinrich's sedan off a cliff into the sea at Lover's Leap. As the episode ended, Heinrich was turning over to Officer Manigan the unconscious body of the Blue Beetle. As our story opens today, Manigan, still in Heinrich's office, is questioning him about the murder today.
Now, what about this license number I have here?
I'm sure I don't know anything about it.
It's your number, ain't it?
It's my number. The license plate must have been stolen from my car.
Well, where is your car now?
In the garage back of my office here.
Well, suppose we have a look.
Well, what about the Blue Beetle on the floor there?
No, he's still unconscious. He'll stay there till we get back. I've handcuffed him to the radiator pipe.
All right, then this way. I have a passageway connecting with my private garage.
Well, go ahead, I'll follow you. But no monkey business.
Say go to the radiator, that's it. Done. Every house used to have radiators everywhere. A lot of places to be handcuffed to. A lot of places.
Turn these handcuffs off with my magic ray.
Oh, you left with you, but they didn't even check to see who you are. You built up the intrigue.
Now to catch Nosy with Heinrich's other car, the murder car, before he runs it off Lover's Leap into the sea. I'll need that car for evidence. Maybe I can pick up the kidnap trail from Nosy.
They don't call him a record on the West Coast. Guaranteed it's set off a cliff, Lover's Lane, Leap.
That looks like the murder car ahead. Only one man in it. Must be Nosy. Yes, he's turned off on the road to Lover's Leap. I'll have to step on it. Here we go. Now, this motorcycle can certainly travel.
So what was the license plate made of?
All right, Nosy.
They go with the car or with the owner?
This is no motorcycle, cop. It's the Blue Beetle, and he's going to Neff. Hey, get off this running bar. Put on those brakes. Put on those brakes, quick. We'll both go over Lover's Leap together.
Why are my arms so good?
No, you don't. You're staying with me. Put on those brakes. It's too late. We're headed right for the cliff. Let me out of here. Let me out. You're going where I go, Nosy. I hope you can swim, because here we go.
How many kids picked up that phrase the next 6 months?
Well, Officer Manigan, I hope you're satisfied.
Not completely. There's continuing investigations elsewhere.
Good. And don't forget to pick up the Blue Beetle in my office.
Oh, I'll pick him up, all right.
Kids have been irritating me since I was a kid.
Well, here we are at my office. You tell the DA I'm at his service to testify against the Blue Beetle anytime.
Where is the Blue Beetle?
Lying right there.
Yeah, but he ain't now. And here's me handcuffs going right through.
This is serious. We've got to catch that thief.
Yes, but how? He's a slippery one, that Blue Beetle.
That's your job, Manigan. Better get busy or I'll report you to the commissioner for negligence. No wonder our city is overrun with crooks. What we need is better police protection.
Hello? Commissioner Downey speaking.
This is the Blue Beetle, Commissioner.
The Blue Beetle?
Yes. I think I've located your daughter.
You have? Where is she?
She's being held prisoner at the old sawmill.
How do you know?
I rescued one of the kidnapped gang from drowning. And the car he was driving went over the cliff at Lover's Leap. He can talk to me. Fine work. I'll have the police on the trail right away. Just a minute, Commissioner. Don't do that, please. Well, what is this, a joke? If it is, I'll have every police officer in the city on your trail. Oh, wait. Listen to me. Well? There's a chance of rescuing your daughter and apprehending a lot of crooks if this matter is handled right. What do you mean, handled right? First, tell me, have you received any ransom demands from the kidnappers? No, not a word of any kind. Have you anything that might be of value to a gang of crooks? No, not that I can think of. Any papers of any sort that might be of value to the wrong people? Only the parole records and recommendations, a list of prospective parolees. Where are they? In my safe here at home. That's the answer. This whole thing ties up with the parole record. What do you mean? The kidnappers are after those papers. Who knows the combination of your safe besides yourself? Only my daughter. That's why they're holding her. To make her divulge the combination of your safe. They plan to steal those papers and blackmail every man that's out on parole or who may be later released on parole. Why, I never heard of such a fantastic plan. I'll call the police commissioner and have him Commissioner Downey. If you do that, you'll scare these rough underground. What do you advise, Blue Beetle? Put no guards around your house at all. Move to a hotel. Right away. But I'll leave everything to me, Commissioner. The Blue Beetle will have these trips rounded up before dawn.
This is the Batman top Blue Beetle. If you get stung by a beetle, he's got a magic ray. What's up with beetles? The armor, I don't know.
Now look, Miss Downey, we want the combination of your mother's safe.
I won't tell you.
I'm sure you will, Miss Downey. Swim.
Yeah, boy.
Stop the saw going.
Right.
Run along through. You hear that, Miss Downey?
Yes, I heard it. What about it?
Just imagine yourself bound to a log being run through like a glass block.
Why, you fiend. You wouldn't dare to...
There. Prince.
Yeah, boss.
Shut off the motor. Give me a hand here, but Miss Downey.
Right.
You take our feet. I'll take our head.
You dare touch me and I'll spring the whole world down around your ears.
You go ahead and scream. No one will hear you out here. You're miles away from civilization in the woods here.
So here your eardrums are something, please.
Any noise will stay, the woman's yelling. I heard that log, and it's all right, but I stick this gag in the mouth. Yeah. And now, Miss Downey, one last chance. Will you tell me the combination of your father's safe? Shake your head, yes or no. All right, that's your last chance. Nobody knows you're here. Nobody knows we're here. Start the saw, Spence. Hold it, Spence. So, you're ready to talk, Miss Downey. Another foot and it would have been too late.
The lack of
remove the gas. Right, boy. There. Now, Miss Downey, the combination.
Saw you in half.
Dial left to 7, right to 12, then left twice to 8.
And she's fainted, boss. What'll I do with her? She got what they wanted. We will let her go. She will squeal. Now, start your saw. And let's beat it. Right, boss. Hey, what's that noise? Your beetle. Stop that motor or I'll blast you. What'll I do, boss? Get away from that motor. Oh! That puts you out of the running, Squint. Now for you, Heinrich. Where are you? Oh, there you go. Well, I'll get you later. The Blue Beetle's going to nip the whole gang of murderers, kidnappers, and racketeers. Left 7. And left.
Oh, for fuck's sake. How do I do that? Swipe right. Okay, there.
There. And now, the last scene of the play, Heinrich, the Blue Beetle. Yes, and he's going to nip. Not this time, Blue Beetle. Come on, the mouthpiece. Gangland's famous old man counselor at law, who dyes his hair to keep him young looking. I may be old, but I know my business. The law's never caught up with me yet, and they never will. I'm too clever for them. You're not dealing with the law now. You're facing the Blue Beetle. But the Blue Beetle will never nip again. Put down that gun, Drummond. Not till I wipe out you and Heinrich. Drummond. I didn't feel. No, but you were trying to double-cross me. So here's one for you, Heinrich. And one for you, Blue Beetle. Drummond, your hair. It's turning white. White? My beautiful black hair turning white? Oh. That's for you, Drummond. Never turn your eyes from your opponent if you want to win your point. You vain old man. Your hair was your undoing and my salvation. Here comes the law for you, you crooks. They'll put you where you can't prey on poor unfortunates like Jim Horton. Your parole racket is smashed. The Blue Beetle's job is done. And so the Blue Beetle smashed another racket and won another battle in his crusade against crime. The moral of this story is that neither experience nor intelligence is proof against right and good. History proves that, in the long run, right always triumphs. Further adventures of the Blue Beetle will be dramatized in the next episode of The Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle is a copyrighted box feature appearing in Mystery Men Comics magazine and the Blue Beetle magazine. The Blue Beetle is on the air twice a week on this same station. Consult the broadcast schedule in your local newspaper. And don't forget to listen in to The Blue Beetle.
Patients diagnosed previously. Hong Kong has so far reported over 1,500 COVID-19 infections. The region witnessed a resurgence of COVID-19 cases over the past weeks after some control and preventive measures were eased to revive the economy and let residents resume normal lives. Officials say 433 rivers in China have exceeded alerting levels since early June, with 33 of them rising to historical highs. The Ministry of Water Resources also says 109 rivers have exceeded water safety levels. The ministry warns that China is entering a key period in flood prevention, and the situation in the Yangtze River and Taihu Lake are still severe. Earlier on Sunday, the ministry raised its flood response alert to the second highest level. Water at 10 hydrological stations along the Yangtze River has exceeded warning levels, and the water level at Taihu Lake has exceeded the warning level for 15 consecutive days. So far, floods have affected nearly 37.9 million people in 27 provincial-level regions. Emergency management officials say 141 people are dead or missing, and 28,000 houses have collapsed. Latest data shows shipments of 5G phones reached over 17.5 million units in China last month. The figure accounted for more than 61% of the country's total mobile phone shipments in June, up from 46% in May. China saw the rollout of 105 new 5G models in the first half of the year, with total shipments at 63.6 million units. Analysts say China is expected to see the first wave of 5G consumption boom as gadgets powered by the next-generation communication technology become the mainstream. Authorities say China will quicken the development of 5G network construction, with more than 600,000 5G base stations expected to be built nationwide by the end of 2020. East China's Zhejiang province has launched a construction project of new infrastructure. The province will invest nearly 1 trillion yuan in the new infrastructure construction, including building more than 120,000 5G base stations and 25 large and super large cloud data centers by 2022. The project will help realize full coverage of 5G signals in areas above the township level by 2022. The Saudi-led Arab coalition involved in war in Yemen says it's intercepted 4 missiles and 7 drones launched by the Houthi rebels toward the kingdom. A coalition spokesperson says the dawn attacks by Houthis targeted civilian areas. Saudi authorities say Houthis have carried out over 1,600 attacks on the country in the past 5 years, with ballistic missiles, drones, explosive boats, and naval bombings. And that's the news. I'm Sweet.
Serious?
Studio Plus, a taste of news, culture, and views. All right, let's go. Tune in to meet some fascinating people, share their stories.
China is one of the great creative countries.
Old baking styles.
Exclusively Chinese musical.
Studio Plus, something fresh. Then add in your mushrooms. Something fun. Something more. Studio Plus. Studio Plus. Hello and welcome to Studio Plus, coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Liu Min. Joining me today is Nila Nyakova. Hello, Nila. Good Monday to you, Liu Min. Nice to see you again. And we just talked about how we spent our weekend. You told me that you drove into the mountainous area. How was it?
I did a fantastic road trip to the mountain in an area called, I think it's So High or Sea High or something like that. Past the Great Wall, and it was really fantastic getting out of the city. Me and a friend of mine, we drove about, I would say, totally 300 kilometers.
Wow, that's so far from here.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to feel as if I had gone on vacation and came back. So we just kept on driving and driving and driving, and the roads there fantastic, meandering through the wonderful views and the mountain scenery. It was just breathtaking, and it's something I really enjoyed about Saturday. But of course, on Sunday, yesterday being a rainy day.
Yeah, indeed.
Guess what I did? I stayed on the couch all day.
That's fantastic. That's also a fantastic choice.
Yeah, it is, because otherwise there was nothing else you could do, because it was just, I'm not a huge fan of the...
Oferta do Benfica, oferta foi...
Yeah, I heard a child screaming, but kids scream a lot. It never bothers me. That's not what I heard either. It never bothers me. I just notice it. Like dogs do.
Accidental discovery that changed the world.
People apologize to me. I don't understand why.
Am Abend des 8. November 1895.
On the evening of November the 8th, 1895, when Wilhelm Röntgen was conducting an experiment on a gas discharge tube, he noticed that a small piece of crystal near the tube was giving out light due to induction.
Fluoreszierende Kristalle auf einmal leuchteten. Um zu überprüfen, warum das geschehen ist.
To find out the reason, Röntgen blocked the tube first with black cardboard, then a box, and then a lead weight. He found that the crystal continued to glow. Röntgen realized that the experiment might have produced a new type of ray that could penetrate most solids. He named it the X-ray, as X represented the unknown.
Absolut begeistert von seiner neuen Entdeckung.
He was excited about the discovery. First, he carefully studied different materials, such as wood, weights, coils, and other objects. Then he decided to irradiate his wife's hand with an X-ray. He published all his photos, and in only a few hours, the news spread all over the world. You know, there were no computers at that time.
Auch damals noch ohne Computer.
This ray that could penetrate all living things became a source of entertainment. People began to use it for all kinds of things. Young women soon saw it as something fashionable. When innovative X-ray machines for trying out shoes became a common sight in some shoe stores.
There's kids, they deal with lots of kids, and it was easier than having a person fucking.
As well as being popular among ordinary people, The new discovery also caused a sensation in the medical field.
这种射线如果打在一个特殊的材料表面的时候
The ray creates an image when irradiating the surface of special materials. This means that when it passes through the human body, our skin, subcutaneous fat, muscles, bones, and internal organs will be revealed. Hence, it enables us to understand the internal pathological changes of the patient without harming him. We don't need to open his belly to see if there's anything wrong with his stomach. We cannot know this before we conduct an operation. The X-ray was a great contribution.
在视线就可以知道，这是一个非常大的贡献。
However, researchers were unaware of the disaster that was quietly approaching. When people were overexposed to this ray, their cell tissues would become seriously damaged due to ionizing radiation, resulting in fatal damage to the human body. In the gardens of St. George Hospital in Hamburg, Germany, there's a memorial built in 1936.
Wir stehen jetzt hier vor dem Ehrenmal der Opfer der Anwendungen von Röntgen.
We're now standing in front of the memorial to the X-ray martyrs. You can see a number of names in a rows. They were not limited to doctors, but also scientists, physicists, and chemical technicians, laboratory staff, nurses, and people in other fields, all of whom were sacrificed for the application of radiation.
Die Opfer der Anwendungen von Röntgenstrahlen geworden ist.
315 names are inscribed on the tablet. They were all the best doctors and scientists of the early 20th century. Due to frequent and unprotected exposure of this kind of ray, almost all of the earliest X-ray researchers died of cancer. It was not until 1925 at the First International Congress of Radiology that scientists recommended setting up the International Commission on Radiation Protection, thus putting an end to this ongoing tragedy.
Mussten dann erst über Jahre lernen, dass sie auch Nebenwirkungen hat.
It took many years for them to understand the side effects. In the long process of development, these people sacrificed their lives to save or prolong more lives. Their sacrifice not only saved the lives of patients, but also ensured the safety of medical staff.
Patienten und unsere Mitarbeiter schützen, dass ihnen nicht auch so etwas widerfährt.
The X-ray had brought devastation to researchers, but it also initiated a medical revolution. With X-rays, more diseases could be accurately diagnosed before surgery, and treatments could be carried out more safely. However, for surgeons in the early 20th century, seeing lesions inside the body was far from enough. There were still many problems to overcome before patients could survive surgery.
I know exactly what's wrong with you.
The combination of medicine and the latest technology continues to push the boundaries of human imagination. But despite the rapid development of technology, doctors, as always, will continue to play a role in treating patients and protecting human life. Find out more in 200 years of surgery.
X-rays prevented surgery.
27-year-old Xiao Yang is 36 weeks pregnant. Her elder daughter is very excited about the new baby.
There's a paper crane. A paper crane. Is it beautiful? It flies.
But the other family members are concerned. A crisis may occur at any time for this expectant mother who's been in hospital for 2 weeks.
Patients with the placenta previa have to be admitted into hospital earlier because bleeding could occur at any time. The baby isn't small. Your first baby was 3.2 kilograms. I think this one is also more than 3 kilograms. Everything looks good. We can't change or improve the maturity of the fetus. The only way is intrauterine preparation.
The medical term for Qiao Yang's condition is dangerous placenta previa, and it's one of the most severe conditions found in obstetrics.
之前知道自己是前置胎盘，他们说有可能就是无痛性的大出血，就是有可能甚至是就躺在血泊当中了。
The placenta has the greatest blood flow in the uterus. Unlike normal pregnant women, Qiao Yang's placenta is at the mouth of the cervix, blocking the baby's exit. A natural childbirth will inevitably tear the placenta and cause a fatal hemorrhage. To guarantee the safety of the mother and child, doctors have decided to perform a cesarean section.
Will adopt some conventional methods. If they fail, we'll consider a hysterectomy. There's a big risk of hemorrhage. It's inevitable.
Normally, 30% blood loss will put a person's life at risk. Experienced obstetricians know very well that the biggest enemy in this operation is a massive hemorrhage. Today, the most common method surgeons use to deal with excessive blood loss during surgery is the blood transfusion. However, just over 120 years ago, this was absolutely unimaginable. Doctors back then did try to inject blood into the human body to save the dying, but it often led to severe consequences. Most of these patients mysteriously died after showing symptoms such as fever, pain, or dark-colored urine. The low success rate left the doctors confused. It was not until 1900 that the renowned Austrian physician and biologist Karl Landsteiner discovered the secret of human blood groups. This scene, under a microscope with a magnification of 400, shows what happens when we mix two different blood groups. The invaded blood quickly produces a large number of Y-shaped antibodies that attack the entering blood. This reaction results in blood coagulation and eventually death.
This is all very relevant.
By conducting a similar experiment, Karl Landsteiner figured out the reason for why blood transfusions failed so often. He went on to establish a blood grouping system. Landsteiner's research made it safe to transfuse blood between two people.
After that, people learned that blood falls into groups A, B, AB, and O. This also meant progress in surgical skills, as there would be no more rejection reaction. In fact, the discovery of blood groups was a critical milestone in the development of surgical technology.
Despite this discovery, blood transfusion technology did not become widespread straight away. In 1914, the outbreak of World War I and the use of new weapons caused unprecedented damage.
It gave a great excuse to experiment on lots of
people did not know how to preserve blood, so transfusions could only be carried out on a one-to-one basis, and this was impractical on the battlefield. As a result, many wounded soldiers did not receive transfusions in time, and thus lost their lives. The brutality of this war facilitated scientific study. An exhibition on medical treatment in World War I is being held at the London Science Museum in Britain. One of the displays is a blood transfusion device used in the war.
We've got 3 tubes going into this bottle. One of them, and 2 needles. One of the needles is put into the donor, so blood comes out of the donor, goes into the tube with the preservative to keep it fresh.
Then you take it to the patient, you put the other needle into them, and you pump away on that little pump there, and that forces the blood into the person who needs the blood.
After the outbreak of World War I, professional blood preservation equipment was developed, making it no longer necessary to collect
In
blood on the
1942, they
battlefield.
put glue on the rolling paper. I'm not impressed with the people's performance.
Researchers also added sodium citrate to blood to preserve it and prevent coagulation.
I'm going to have to write Jehovah's Witness on something.
The injured could finally receive timely and effective blood transfusions, giving them the greatest chance of survival.
Google, put this through process.
Today, of course, blood transfusions are used widely in hospitals, and they've become the most common first aid measure in the operating room.
Careful, careful. I'm worried she may bleed too much. This part is quite thin. It's nearly transparent.
The blood vessels in Xiaoyang's placenta are stretched tight, and they could break at the slightest touch. Despite using every means available, the doctors are unable to prevent a massive hemorrhage.
Use the tourniquet. Okay, you can have a break. We will transfuse some blood. If she loses that much blood in a short time, we won't be able to keep her blood pressure normal at all. Now we are injecting blood into her body, and we hope the hemorrhage can be stopped.
The blood continues to flow into Xiaoyang's body. Blood transfusions began 100 years ago, but surgeons today have mastered a clever new method to deal with more complicated situations: autologous blood transfusions. This machine filters and cleans Xiaoyang's lost blood before returning it to her body. Through doctors' skills and cutting-edge technology, countless mothers like Xiaoyang are given a new chance at life. The crisis is over, and Xiaoyang experiences the joy of holding her newborn baby in her arms.
这个外科的发展啊，绝对啊不是单单的一个外科技术的发展。
Surgery developed not only because of the development of surgical technology, it developed as a result of the development of other sciences. Surgery is only a small part of medical science. The full understanding of the human body completed surgery as a science and brought about more successful operations.
变成一个科学以后，这个手术呢才变得更好起来。
At the beginning of the 20th century, the efforts of many previous medical practitioners laid a solid foundation for the field. Breakthroughs in medical imaging and blood transfusions eventually enabled the Lancet to enter the human body and treat diseases safely and effectively. As the field of medical science flourishes, it has attracted more and more young people eager to join the growing army of surgeons. Selecting and training talents within a limited time has become one of the most pressing tasks for the field. Dongdan is one of Beijing's most prosperous areas. Located at its heart is Peking Union Medical College Hospital. Established 100 years ago, it is the oldest hospital in China. Every morning, people from all over the country walk through its doors, and doctors start the day making the rounds of the wards.
Why did it bleed? The blood vessels were fresh and tender.
What do you mean, fresh and tender?
Zhang Mingxin is used to being sternly corrected by his supervisor. 2 years ago, Zhang Mingxin became a doctoral resident physician at Peking Union Medical College Hospital after 5 years of undergraduate studies and 3 years of master's studies.
Making the rounds of the wards is a form of treating patients. If I were a patient, I would want to see my doctor every day. How? Through this going around the wards in the morning. Of course, resident physicians should see their patients more than once a day. So I often ask patients, which doctor is responsible for you? If the patient can name the doctor, then I'll feel relieved. The question shows whether a doctor communicates well with his patients and is really helping them.
Don't even think about it. You would answer the questions.
Zhang Mingxin has just begun monitoring Han Long, a 24-year-old patient who suffers from a systemic disease that causes multiple tumors throughout the body. This is a kind of tumor that frequently recurs all over the body. 2 years ago, doctors excised lesions in his brain and spinal cord. But recently, a new tumor has appeared in his adrenal gland. Mingxin will have the opportunity to be the first assistant for Han Long's upcoming tumor operation. For the past 2 years, Zhang Mingxin has engaged in basic medical work such as treating patients and recording cases under the guidance of senior doctors. When Peking Union Medical College Hospital was built, it became compulsory for all resident physicians to undergo a resident training program before becoming an attending doctor. The Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore, Maryland, is seen as a mecca by aspiring medical students all over the world. This school changed the history of medical education in the United States and was also the birthplace of the resident training program.
Overall, medicine, particularly in this country before Johns Hopkins medicine was not founded by and large on science or even accurate depictions of anatomy. Most of them did not have requirements of their students to have graduated, say, from a baccalaureate program.
In the late 19th century, at the end of the Civil War, American medical elites headed by William Osler decided to establish a medical school in the true sense of the term. Osler required all doctors at the school to systematically study medicine, pathology, and anatomy before practicing medicine independently. In addition, they also needed to receive 3 to 4 years of clinical training as full-time resident physicians.
The reason even they're called residents is because the trainees, we'd call them trainees before we'd call them residents, as they're training to take care of patients, they would live at Johns Hopkins Hospital. They do not make every decision that's necessary for that patient. Every decision will flow through that resident. So the resident will have supervision. Once they're engaged,
what the fuck is the purpose of having a doctor like this that can't write the prescriptions for anything?
With that, we end today's edition of Selfie. Tomorrow we will continue with the audio segment of this 8-episode documentary titled The 200 Years of Surgery, produced by CGTN. I'm Wenling.
You like to pretend it means what it means here.
Hidden inside this beautiful universe are the deepest secrets of the human body. Man has been exploring it to get a clearer view of how it works since ancient times, opening the door to this forbidden zone and working accurately in this tiny space. Find out more in the next episode of 200 Years of Surgery.
Chest cavity or the cranial?
Some say Chinese is one of the most difficult languages in the world, and learning it is almost impossible.
So learning Chinese, the most difficult thing.
So I'm sort of tone deaf. I can't really hear them.
I think the cultural mindset is the biggest complication for grammar.
It just complicates it so much.
only because you're not learning it in the right way. Why not try Takeaway Chinese, where you can take some Chinese away and experience progress day by day. Takeaway Chinese, we will promise you a difference.
你好，欢迎收听随行汉语 Welcome to Takeaway Chinese. I'm Niu Honglin. Joining me today, the handsome and hilarious Carl Benjaminson. Hi, Carl.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well today, and I made some changes today that I'm, kind of proud of. Actually, starting from this week, I started to bring my own mug to the CRI building because we actually provide a coffee service in the building, and you get to have your takeaway coffee or have the coffee at the little coffee place. And I try to always have the coffee for the sake of the environment, because if you want your coffee to take away, you need a paper cup, 纸杯，用纸杯带走. So I use a paper cup to have my coffee takeaway. But this week I started to, have a revelation where I decided that even though in cases that I'll have my coffee takeaway, I'll use my own mug.
See, I had this revelation a while ago that rather than using my paper cup to take my coffee back to my desk, I could not sit at my desk and just sit in the cafe for, a couple of breaks during the shift. Hopefully my boss isn't watching, but I certainly have done that for environmental reasons, if anyone asks.
Yes, and that's the thing. Environment is very important, and sometimes you think about it, you feel like you understand, but you got to actually do something in your daily life, make some changes in your daily life to actually protect the environment.
And part of that, I have to say, is if you do bring your own cup to work to use instead of a paper cup, make sure you wash your cup regularly, otherwise your environment in the office will get pretty gross when new forms of life start pouring out of the top of your moldy
7-Eleven fucking bullshit
That's
motherfucker. Wait for a
totally
reason.
true.
Yell at me.
But another tiny small thing that you can do in your daily life, or a small change you can make to your personal habit, would be, instead of throwing everything into the same bin, maybe a huge one, but still, you can actually start to sort the garbage, or to start the garbage sorting process before you throw them away. And that will be the topic of today. So for our dear listeners, if you're interested in Chinese culture and you care about the environment, please listen to today's Takeaway Chinese. And this would be a show perfectly for you to, take care of both topics. And stick with us for 30 minutes. You soon see the rewards of learning a language and taking care of the environment. And for more fun Chinese learning, follow our Facebook page, CRI Learn Chinese, to watch many fun videos and live streams. But now, let's provide you with some free Chinese for takeaway. 帮我扔一下垃圾袋好不好？等我2分钟行吗？我马上就写完作业了。你知道怎么分类吗？学校里教过，我正好需要实践。
See, what I took away from this conversation was there is a kid who's debating what he wants to do the least. Does he want to do his homework, or does he want to sort the garbage and take it out? And it sounds like he's decided that he'd rather do his homework than sort through the trash.
You know what I like most about you?
My incredible cynicism.
Your optimistic personality. Okay, so for this conversation, I cannot argue with that because that's your, own personal feeling towards it. But I can tell you something more correct or useful about the conversation. For example, the first sentence, 帮我扔一下垃圾袋好不好?
Can you help me throw the garbage away?
Well, that would be help. 我
No.
Me.
Do it yourself.
扔
Run is like to throw. So a little bit different. Can you use it for to throw a ball, or is it more to get rid of something?
Actually, you can use it for throw a ball. So it is throw. 扔 is the verb throw. And you can see the left part of the picture component 提手旁. It represents a hand. So there are a lot of Chinese pictures with that part, that, let's say, picture component. It would be a verb, and most of the times you use it with your hand.
Because I was thinking like 打篮球.
打篮球.
To hit the
to hit something. Yes. 打. So this 扔 would be throw. 扔一下.
Yeah, it's like a moment or a bit.
A bit. But actually 扔一下 does not make a lot of sense if you translate it word by word.
No.
Because 扔一下 would be like throw it away a bit. But it's actually this 一下 here means that it won't take a lot of time of yours. So 扔一下, and then we have 垃圾袋.
So rubbish bag, garbage bag.
Yes. And 垃圾 here is actually the key word of this episode. So 垃圾 would be garbage. 垃圾, garbage. 好不好?
Good or not good is a little translation. It's basically like, can you help me with this?
Exactly.
Can you do it or not?
Yeah. Actually, 好不好, we've seen this kind of expression for a lot of times. We say this is a very simple affirmative negative kind of question. You say 好不好, good or not good, meaning that is it good or not? Or 有没有, have or not have, meaning do you have it or not. But today, let's have a more comprehensive understanding towards it. Let's see what are some more ways to use this kind of sentence structure. So the easiest one would be verb plus no, actually plus 不 plus another verb. So we have 是不是.
So is it or is it not?
是不是 or 来不来.
So is someone going to come or not?
Yeah, so you can say things like 你们来不来? Are you guys coming? In English, you say are you guys coming or not? Then it'll be a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
But in Chinese, it's the perfect expression. And also you can say things like I'm going getting a coffee or do you want one?
So 我去买咖啡，你要不要？
你要不要? So 我去买咖啡，我去 I go 买咖啡 buy coffee. 你 you 要不要 want or not? 我去买咖啡，你要不要? So with verb, you can easily use verb 不 verb expression to mean that do you want to do a certain thing. But maybe you guys have already noticed that in the examples we gave, actually we only give the kind of verb that is one character verb.
Which makes it a very easy sentence structure.
Exactly. There will be situations with the verb having two characters in the word. And in those cases, actually there are two options. So for example, I consider like a verb. 喜欢.
Yeah.
And if you want to ask someone, do you like it? You can either repeat the whole word with two characters. So 喜欢不喜欢.
Which sounds a little bit clunky though.
A little bit clunky. So another alternative would be 你喜不喜欢.
So the meaning is the same, but you've just dropped off that second character in the first usage.
Exactly. So if you have a two-character word, which is a verb, which you want to use in a verb 不 verb situation kind of sentence, then you use the first character of that verb plus 不 plus the entire word. So 喜欢不喜欢 can be 喜不喜欢, so like or not like. And also you can ask questions like 你回不回家?
So are you coming home or not?
Yes. So 回would be return, coming back, and 家 would be home. So 回家 is a word going home, coming back home. So 你回不回家? Are you coming back home or not? 你回不回家? Or 你爸爸喝不喝酒?
So does your dad drink alcohol or not?
喝酒 would be drink alcohol, have alcohol. 你爸爸 your dad 喝不喝酒 have alcohol or not. And this also applies to the situation where you got a verb and you got an object of that verb. So technically speaking, they don't form a really long verb themselves, but it is a verb plus object structure. This sentence structure can also be used for adjectives. So if I say 我漂不漂亮?
Is something beautiful or not?
I'm asking, am I beautiful or not? See, 漂亮 is a adjective. It's a two-character adjective, so it applies to the second situation we talked about. You repeat the first character, or you use the first character of the adjective, and plus 不 plus the entire adjective. So 漂不漂亮, beautiful or not. So to sum up, you use word 不 word structure to ask whether or not this thing is what the word is describing. And the word can be a verb or an adjective. And if it is a 2-character word, you can use the first character plus 不 plus the entire word for that structure.
And to be honest, this is one of the easiest parts of grammar to pick up in Chinese.
Actually, yes.
But it's also incredibly useful because you use this kind of language every day. So if you really want to practice how to ask people questions, this is a really good way to start.
Oh yeah, make it your challenge of the day. You can try to find, let's say, a list of words you can use this sentence structure with and practice on your Chinese friends. Annoy them all, and that is how you get good in Chinese.
Yes.
Totally do that. Yes, so that is the sentence structure. And then we got 好不好, which is the easiest one. You got 好不好, would you do that for me, good or not good? And then part B said, 等我2分钟行吗？我马上就写完作业了。
Can you wait 2 minutes for me, okay? I will finish my homework straight away.
So 等我2分钟.
So please wait for me for 2 minutes. Or wait me 2 minutes. And 行吗 is like okay.
Yes. So 等 is wait.
Some of you actually think I'm making fun of Chinese people when they talk real simple.
Can you replace 行吗 with another
You're trying to fucking
word?
get more complex and fucking their heads.
It is actually right. And I was looking forward for you to say 好不好 because we've just learned it, but it's fine. You can also say 好吗, by the way. Yes, it works. So 等我2分钟行吗? Would you wait me for 10 minutes? 我馬上就寫完作業了.
So 我 me 馬上 like quickly or
right away.
Right away. So it's just going to happen. 写完作業了. So literally writing finished homework.
Yes. So 写完 is right. 完 is finish homework. 我馬上就寫完作業了. I'll soon finish my homework. I'll finish my homework right away. And then here we can see that 2分钟, 2 minutes. Do you know another word for 2?
Yeah, say 2. You wouldn't really say 2分钟.
No, you cannot say 2分钟. I didn't used to realize the difference until I realized that for English speaker, 2 is more towards 2 in number. And 2 is more likely to be translated as second. So if we say 2月, it's the second month of the year. So it's February. We say 第二, 他考了第二, he got to the second place in the test. So that's second. And 2, we say 2块钱, 2块, or 2个月,
2 months.
2 months. So 2 is more like 2 of something, whereas 2 is more like the second of something.
Yeah, it's almost like a couple of something.
A couple of something.
Yeah.
So 2, you would see also examples like 2次, 2 times.
Yeah.
See, context matter.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 2 and 2. And then part A said, 你知道怎么分类吗?
Do you know how to sort the garbage?
Do you know how to sort the garbage? 你知道, you 知道, no, 怎么, how, 分类 would be sort or in a way classification. We've talked about this.
So this is again one of the key words for today. So,
yes.
Separate into different kinds of things.
Exactly. 分类, separate into different kind of things, put them into different sorts. And here again, you can say things like 你知不知道怎么分类?
So can you or can you not understand how to do this?
Always try to, I think, practice the something structure with the structure of word structure we talked about. You can try to switch them on and off a little bit as a way to practice. And then part B said, 学校里教过，我正好需要实践。
I've learned at school how to do this. I just need some practice.
学校里教过。
So literally at school or inside school, I have learned this. We've gone through this before.
Yes, actually, it's a little bit more like 教过 is like the school has taught me.
Yeah, so like suggests you've gone through something, a process has happened.
Yeah, and 教 is teach. So we know that it's the teacher that does the teaching, but 学校里教过, so inside the school, it has been taught. So this is the kind of passive expression without the passive signal 被. And it happens in Chinese actually also a lot. You gotta just, read in between the lines, understand the context, you understand it. And 我正好需要实践.
So 我 me, 正好. How would you translate 正好?
正好 is just right. It is just the right time to practice this. It's kind of like our needs or the demand and the needs match perfectly. But
okay, so it's good timing.
It's good timing or good place or just right. So 正 is straight and 好 is good. So it's like exactly good for something.
And 需要 is must or needs. And 实践 it means practice. My question is thinking about the HSK 2 tests. Would you say 练习, which also means practice?
Actually, you can say 练习 in this case.
So the meaning is the same.
The meaning is the same. So I think 实践 is just a bit more sophisticated than 练习. 练习 is exactly practice. 实践 is more like put in practice. So if you're reading a government report or government document, you see the word 实践 much more often than 练习. So 实践 also carries the meaning of you take the theory and you memorize and you understand the theory and you put it in practice.
Okay, so whereas 练习, if you're a language learner, is more take these 10 characters for homework and copy them 50 times each. So it's a little bit less sophisticated a task.
Totally.
Okay.
Yes. So if you're 练习, in most cases, you're going to have to do it more than once. But if you're 实践, you actually just need to take the theory into practice. You do it once and you know it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 实践. Any more questions?
No, I think we're right to go. I will start.
Okay.
帮我问一下垃圾袋好不好？
等我2分钟行吗？我马上就写完作业了。
你知道什么分类吗？
学校里教过，我正好需要实践。You are listening to Takeaway Chinese with myself, Niu Honglin, and Carl. Would love to hear from you. Send us your thoughts by email to learnchinese@cri.com.cn. Coming up next, let's talk more about the garbage sorting. Welcome back to Takeaway Chinese. I'm Niu Honglin, joined by Carl. So we talked about 垃圾分类, garbage sorting. 垃圾分类. Do you know what started, or let's say restarted, the debate?
From memory, it was in part because China was sick of importing other countries' garbage and decided that they were just going to recycle their own trash and didn't want dirty trash from overseas, from countries like Australia that were exporting their trash that was really dirty and really unclean for China to clean all this recycling process.
Yes, that is the beginning of that. And then different places, different cities come up with their own regulations or guidelines of traffic classification and garbage sorting. And Shanghai was actually, if I remember it correctly, it was the first city that started the mandatory or compulsory garbage sorting.
And it was pretty complicated, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I think it was Alibaba actually offered an app and it listed about 300 things. And if you're going to throw it away, you could classify it. So I think in the early days, there was a bit of a confusion because you'd sort things into hazardous waste, which is 有害垃圾.
有害垃圾. So 有 is have, 害 is actually hurt. But here, if something has hurt, it means it is hazardous.
And there was also a category of recyclable waste. So 可回收物.
可回收物. This is fun because garbage is, let's say, 垃圾 is garbage, but the Chinese word 垃圾 carries the meaning of this thing is waste. It has no use at all. And that is why in 垃圾 garbage, you also got this category of 可回收物. 物 is 物品, so a good or a stuff. So if this thing can be recycled, if this thing can be 回, take back, return, 收 and accept, receive, then this is actually recyclable, or it is no longer a waste. It is no longer a garbage. It is a stuff. So 可回收物 actually means something that you can take back.
Now that I think they were pretty simple categories for people to work out. A battery is dangerous. All medicines are dangerous. You know, a glass bottle can be recycled. What tripped some people up are the other two categories. So there was dry waste, ganlaji, and there was wet waste, 湿垃圾. And people were asking questions about if it's like my leftover noodles. I mean, that's wet waste. But then, for example, if I had, say, roasted lamb or some pork, the bone would be considered dry waste. And so there was a bit of confusion about, you know, what went into what category. And my favorite answer to that came from someone from the Chinese countryside. It said, if you can feed it to a pig, it's wet waste. If you can't feed it to a pig, it's dry waste.
Totally. I think that is a really good way to understand it. It's, you know, the kind of wisdom we got from
proper country wisdom.
Yeah, very, very country wisdom. And you say things like, 猪能吃, 能 is can, 吃 eat, 猪能吃的. So pig can eat, that'll be 湿垃圾, so wet garbage. 猪不能吃的, pig cannot eat, 是干垃圾, dry waste. 会毒死猪的, or 猪吃了会毒死. So if the pig eat them, the pigs are going to be poisoned and die. That'll be 有害垃圾, 有害垃圾. So that's the hazardous waste. So 垃圾分类. And I understand that in a lot of places it's not compulsory yet. 不是强制分类啊, 强制 compulsory. It's not compulsory yet, but I think Beijing is starting to rolling out its own city standard of garbage sorting, even though it's again not compulsory yet. I've seen a lot of flyers in my neighborhood giving information about what kind of standard you should use to do your own garbage sorting, and you see different colors of garbage bin in the neighborhood already, and you throw them into different garbage bin in the very first place, and people started to buy their own, you know, intelligent garbage bin online at home. My very good friend Lai Ming has spent more than 100 yuan on a garbage bin at home because, you know, his high-end garbage bin was a high-end 高端 high-end garbage bin can help him sort the different garbages.
Or the other old-fashioned way, you have your local AIs, your local aunties in the neighborhood who loiter around the garbage bins first thing in the morning and at night and scold you if you put stuff in the wrong bin. That is an approach that is being used in Beijing, and I have to say it scared me into doing the right thing.
That is also a very good way. And you know why that happens? Because a recent report has shown that nearly 95% of people in 35 cities across China who have taken the social survey are willing to classify waste and calling for more efforts to transform that willingness into daily practice.
Yes.
They are tired of the messed up garbage bins, and they are willing to do something to make the world a better place. Isn't that nice? So maybe from this part of the episode, you can take away the idea that we have 干垃圾 dry refuse, 湿垃圾 wet trash, 可回收物 recyclable waste, 有害垃圾 hazardous waste, and the idea that if you don't know how to sort your garbage, think about a cute tiny pig. You don't want to poison it, feed them with the right garbage.
We're gonna act like we're too stupid to know our own
language. Or wants to eat as much as it can, but it doesn't eat the kind of yelling danger.
That is also a good idea. And that brings us to the end of today's Takeaway Chinese. I'm Niu Honglin with Carl in the studio. For more episodes of the show, you can visit our website at chinaplus.cri.cn and go to the column Ni Hao. You can also listen to the show and read the script on our EVSN app.
You can find episodes of the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.
In case you'd like to listen to some previous shows, leave your comments, thoughts, and ratings. 感谢收听，我们下次再见。
再见。
我要学汉语。
I want to learn Chinese.
其实并不难 ，It can be fun.
欢乐汉语 Chinese Studio。
Welcome to Chinese Studio. 我是 Raymond.
我是亚杰. We're having a great time.
Yes, and today we're going to teach you what to say to your loved one.
That's right. We're going to know how to do more about household talk.
Okay, here are the keywords of the day.
Keywords of the day.
Bitch.
Dinner. 晚饭. Honey, I'm home. 亲爱的，我回来了. What's for dinner tonight? 晚饭吃什么?
Did you catch the
All
Western
in today's
influence on
Chinese
that?
studio. Well, if you have loved ones, you have to know how to greet them.
Cool. I have lots of loved ones, as it is still the holidays.
Okay, Raymond, you should greet your loved ones like this. Honey, I'm home.
Yeah. How do you say that in Chinese?
Well, you can say, 亲爱的，我回来了.
亲爱的，我回来了.
So, 亲爱的 is how you can call darling or honey in Chinese.
亲爱的.
我, the third tone, which means I.
我
回来, which means get back.
回来.
No, it's the completion of an action.
Okay, so I love that. How do you say darling or honey in Chinese?
亲爱的. Now you do.
Capsicum, they say get the fuck
Not bad. So how do you say I'm home in Chinese?
回来. So how do you say that again? How do you say I'm back?
我回来了.
Honey, I'm home.
亲爱的，我回来了。亲爱的，我回来了。
亲爱的，我回来了。
You're listening to an elementary Chinese learning program, Chinese Studio, on China Radio International.
Okay, Yajie, you've got to learn a few things about how we should be talking sweeter with our loved ones.
How would you know, Raymond? You're a robot.
Thanks. You might as well call me a Cylon.
Okay, well, let's say you're about to come home for dinner. What do you think you're asked?
What's for dinner tonight?
Right. You men think with your stomach. That's how it is. And this is how you can say, what's for dinner tonight in Chinese. 晚饭吃什么?
晚饭吃什么?
晚饭, the third tone and the fourth tone, which means dinner.
晚饭.
吃, the first tone, which means to eat. 吃什么? The second tone and the light tone, which means what?
什么? So how do you say dinner?
晚饭.
How about eat?
吃.
And then what?
什么?
Let's say, what's for dinner tonight? Or literally, dinner eat what?
In Chinese, you can say, 晚饭吃什么? 晚饭吃什么?
晚饭吃什么?
Well, that wraps up this edition of Chinese Studio.
That's right. So go home and tell your loved ones these messages.
Which one?
The ones we mentioned.
Okay, well, we might as well ask them how to say, what's for dinner tonight in Chinese? And also to check on the website, brienglish.com, and click on Learn Chinese. 明天见.
明天见.
It's not the same thing.
Join the most popular Chinese language learning page on Facebook by searching for CRI Learn Chinese. It's a quick yet fun way to achieve your language goals. Start your free lessons now with unlimited videos, photos, and text tutorials on expressions and Chinese culture. CRI Learn Chinese Facebook page. The world of
You're listening to China Plus Radio, connecting you with China and the world.
Now the news, I'm Su Yi. China has announced sanctions on a U.S. entity and 4 officials in response to U.S. sanctions on multiple Chinese officials in Xinjiang region. The 4 U.S. officials are Senator Marco Rubio, Senator Ted Cruz, Congressman Chris Smith, and Sam Brownback, the U.S. State Department Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. The sanctions will also be applied on the U.S. Congressional Executive Commission on China. A Chinese government spokesperson says the country is determined to safeguard national sovereignty, security, and development interests and combat violent terrorism, separatism, and extremism. The official also urges the U.S. side to stop interfering in China's internal affairs. 2 WHO experts have arrived in China for cooperation on researching the origin of the COVID-19 virus. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says the WHO experts will exchange ideas with their Chinese counterparts. The ministry stresses China and the WHO agree that origin tracing is a scientific issue which should be studied by scientists through international research and cooperation. It also says WHO believes origin tracing is an ongoing process, probably concerning many countries and localities, and the organization will conduct similar trips to other countries and regions if necessary. Hong Kong reported 41 local infections on COVID-19 on Monday, a new high since the COVID-19 outbreak. Health officials say of the new local infections, the transmission chains of 20 cases are still unclear, and 21 cases are related to patients diagnosed previously. Hong Kong has so far reported over 1,500 COVID-19 infections. The region witnessed a resurgence of COVID-19 cases over the past weeks after some control and preventive measures were eased to revive the economy and let residents resume normal lives. Officials say 433 rivers in China have exceeded alerting levels since early June, with 33 of them rising to historical highs. The Ministry of Water Resources also says 109 rivers have exceeded water safety levels. The ministry warns that China is entering a key period in flood prevention, and the situation in the Yangtze River and Taihu Lake are still severe. Earlier on Sunday, the ministry raised its flood response alert to the second highest level. Water at 10 hydrological stations along the Yangtze River has exceeded warning levels, and the water level at Taihu Lake has exceeded the warning level for 15 consecutive days. So far, floods have affected nearly 37.9 million people in 27 provincial-level regions. Emergency management officials say 141 people are dead or missing, and 28,000 houses have collapsed. Latest data shows shipments of 5G phones reached over 17.5 million units in China last month. The figure accounted for more than 61% of the country's total mobile phone shipments in June, up from 46% in May. China saw the rollout of 105 new 5G models in the first half of the year, with total shipments at 63.6 million units. Analysts say China is expected to see the first wave of 5G consumption boom as gadgets powered by the next-generation communication technology become the mainstream. Authorities say China will quicken the development of 5G network construction, with more than 600,000 5G base stations expected to be built nationwide by the end of 2020. East China's Zhejiang province has launched a construction project of new infrastructure. The province will invest nearly 1 trillion yuan in the new infrastructure construction, including building more than 120,000 5G base stations and 25 large and super large cloud data centers by 2022. The project will help realize full coverage of 5G signals in areas above the township level by 2022. The Saudi-led Arab coalition involved in war in Yemen says it's intercepted 4 missiles and 7 drones launched by the Houthi rebels toward the kingdom. A coalition spokesperson says the dawn attacks by Houthis targeted civilian areas. Saudi authorities say Houthis have carried out over 1,600 attacks on the country in the past 5 years, with ballistic missiles, drones, explosive boats, and naval mines. And that's the news. I'm Su Yi.
Today, providing provide you with in-depth news and expert analysis, telling the full story and vividly. Bring you the news you want to know, only on Today.
Australia accuses China of buying up its water resources. Florida sets a U.S. record for single-day COVID-19 cases. Turkey reconverts its iconic museum into a mosque. And Poland's conservative president Duda wins re-election. You're listening to World Today, a news program with a different perspective. I'm Glenna in Beijing. In the coming hour, we'll bring you in-depth analysis of this news and other stories we'll be following. To listen to this episode again or to catch up on previous episodes, you can download our podcast by searching World Today.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Country in the past 5 years with ballistic missiles, drones.
Australia last month, a report from the Register of Foreign Ownership of Water Entitlements. It found that 1 in 10 Australian water entitlements is foreign-owned. Chinese and United States investors each own 1.9%, followed by the United Kingdom with 1.1%. But why only accusing China of loading up on Australian water resources? Let's have Professor Quentin Grafton, chairholder of the UNESCO Chair in Water Economics and Transboundary Water Governance, Australian National University, and Professor Chen Hong, Executive Vice President of Chinese Association of Australian Studies in China and Director of Australian Studies Center, East China Normal University. Welcome to World Today, gentlemen.
Thank you.
First of all, let me begin with Professor Grafton. Could you please give us more background information about the water trading system in Australia? What is a water entitlement?
The water entitlements are water rights. And so what happens every year on the 1st of July, each water entitlement gets an allocation, which is a physical volume of water that goes to the water entitlement. And these water entitlements are owned principally by irrigators and irrigation companies, and then they use this water that's typically stored and sometimes available in the streams and rivers then to irrigate their crops. And so that's what a water entitlement is. It's a water right that gives you a physical volume of water every year.
How many Chinese enterprises owned water entitlements in Australia?
Yeah, so there are a number of Chinese enterprises that are part-owned or potentially fully owned variety of irrigation enterprises and farm enterprises. And so they would have water entitlements associated with their businesses. And then every year they would get water allocations just like an Australian company or an Australian individual who held a water entitlement. Now that water can be stored or it can be used, but for irrigation purposes. If you can't take it out of the country, it stays where it is. It's water in Australia that can be used in Australia, or it can be stored for a later point, or it can be used for increasing stream flows, which we would call in Australia environmental flows. So it doesn't matter who owns it, so to speak. It has to be used according to the rules and regulations in terms of how water can be allocated and how it can be stored. And how it can be extracted associated with these water entitlements.
So how do you view the concerns about the Chinese ownership?
Look, I think that there are several concerns in the water market and water in general in Australia. One of them is the issue of speculation that somehow some individuals, and they don't have to be foreign, they could be Australian companies, that own water and then they speculate by selling it at high prices, and maybe manipulating prices. So there's a concern around that, and there's a concern about market power as well in the sense of influencing prices, so even if they're not necessarily involved in speculation. Now, there is the Australian Consumer Competition has undertaken a report that was provided to the Australian government on the 30th of June. I don't know what's in that report. I haven't seen that report. It has been made public. That is a report on the review of the competitiveness or otherwise of the water market in Australia. So we'll know shortly when that's released, whenever the government chooses to release it,
what the nature of the water market is in the context of its competitive nature. But that is a separate issue, in my view, from the ownership issue, but they have been complained, I believe, in the general discourse.
Professor Grafton, experts say this is a distraction from the problematic system, such as lack of transparency on the ownership. So what's your take on that?
Well, there is a set of issues around how water is used in Australia, in particular in the Murray-Darling Basin. And those sets of issues around that we don't have adequate and transparent data in the context of private water storages, in terms of extractions and in terms of the return flows after extraction and application to farmers' fields in terms of going back into streams, going back into groundwater. So that's what I and others have called for a water audit. And that audit is really about the physical volumes and how water is used within the basin. We don't have the adequate information. We certainly don't have it at a sufficiently detailed enough scale. We've been arguing this for a number of years, as have some of my colleagues. I think that's an important issue. I think the second issue is the issue around water planning and the nature of some catchments, particularly within the Murray-Darling Basin. There isn't, in my view, enough allocation for environmental or stream flows, and I think that's an ongoing problem. We also face issues of drying in the context of some parts of Australia associated with climate change, and we have a whole set of issues associated around Indigenous water and water injustice. So there's a set of issues that I would call them made in Australia issues that Australia and Australians have to deal with. And those are the big issues of the day in Australia when it comes to water. And I believe the issues around ownership, foreign ownership of secondary or tertiary importance relative to the issues I've outlined.
Professor Zhang, what's your take? Because the details of the recent report sparked a wave of online conspiracy concerning China and also the security of Australian water. So is China, as Australian media reports, behind any plot to buy up Australia's water?
Obviously not. As we know, you simply cannot buy up any country's water resource, as water is not something that can be transported out of the country to anywhere else. So whatever the ownership of water is still in Australia to supply the needs of Australia. So obviously all businesses are profit oriented, as Professor Grafton was saying, and sometimes they would tend to be interested in speculative activities. But such activities are regulated by laws and regulations and of course the market in Australia. In fact, I don't think even the creators of such a conspiracy theory themselves really believe in such kind of story. But there is now indeed a worrying tendency in Australia that attempts to demonize and stigmatize China in various cases. More often than not, the scenario has nothing to do with politics. It could completely be a business activity. But those people with the Cold War mentality would deliberately distort the facts to create an image of China as a threat. For example, Chinese investments in Australia ranks only number 9 in Australia, taking only 2%. In comparison, the United States has 25.6% of all the foreign investment in Australia. But the Chinese investment has been demonized as depleting Australia's resources and assets, which is a total disregard of facts and truth.
So the phenomenon in Australia, just a report, have a mention of China could make such a fuss in the country. So how do you view the role of Australian media in the deteriorating relations between China and Australia?
Well, I think actually the current Liberal National Coalition government in Australia has been engaged in active cooperation with the international anti-China forces led by the United States.